How are you doing?
Doing well.
Busy, I bet. Did you get any time off?
So usually this time of year is a lot slower,
Yeah.
but this year it's definitely.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Well, maybe you get to take like a couple days off
I'm
next week.
hoping January I get I'm off. I'm in Christmas of the year a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I got.
There you go. There we go. We're okay. Great. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Anita Edmond, thanks for joining us in person.
I'm happy to.
Nice to see you. Okay, so let's start tonight's workshop. We have 4 items on tonight's workshop, and the first is the Vasquez Park hydrant flow item.
Hello, Mayor, trustees. Let me take your phone. And then we'll start, like you said, with the Vasquez Court
Yeah.
hydrant. And so this was a concern because the hydrants up at the top of Vasquez Court do not meet the 20 PSI pounds of pressure per square inch, but it's supposed to be 1,000 gallons per minute at 20 PSI. So that's the standard that's in the IFC that they're looking for on the fire hydrants, to be 1,000 gallons per minute at 20 pounds of pressure. And so these don't reach that limit. So again, I was just trying to get this turned off so we don't have them great interrupt. And so after seeing that result from doing some testing, I wanted to get some more information on it. So I added in the second page of that packet, some of the previous flows that were done or the testing of the hydrants. So if you saw there on the second page, it showed the results from 2012 and the results from 2009 are really about the same. So it's really been at the very top of the hill, 550 to 650, 650 gallons per minute, I should say. The mid-level, the middle of the block hydrant has been right around 750 gallons per minute. And then the lowest one on that Vasquez Court block has been about 900 to 900, almost 1,000 gallons per minute. So we had an applicant submit a building permit application and they wanted to add an addition onto their house. And when that went to the fire department for their review that they do of the building permits, they check really for access and water, fire flow. And so they ask what the flow is there. And after explaining to them that it wasn't meeting their 1,000 gallons per minute, they then explained that then the house shouldn't be built. We did have something similar to this a few years back at the end of First Avenue. Those hydrants weren't meeting the required flow. We looked into it and found a solution. Don't remember what that cost, but it wasn't nearly the $500,000 that we have as an estimate of cost in this case as the cheapest option to go forward. So we did go out, had our previous town contracted engineering company do some research, look at our water modeling that we have, and then come up with some options. They really only came up with two. One is the pump station. The other could be potentially a new whole tank further up, putting it onto the Boone property. Back at that time when we went to have them look into this, there was still some discussion, things were coming out with regard to the IGA and the Boone property. I had heard previously, one of the previous administrators had actually talked to them about a water tank in that area. So we did include that in some of the research that they were doing. That wasn't presented in this packet because again, that gets even more expensive. I just this morning received their final report. They said they would have it to me last week, but this morning, so I didn't put that in the packet. It goes into a little more detail on some of the other options with putting in a water tank. But again, if we're already at 500,000 with the one option we have, we were really staff coming to present this to make you aware of it. I have not heard from the building applicant, the applicant who submitted a building permit application, since the fire department told them that they could no longer build. I then talked to the building permit applicant 2 or 3 times. I gave her this information on what we found out, that what it would cost, and I haven't talked to them since. We haven't really come up with any decisions. I advised her that at that cost, that was going to be really difficult, and I don't know what the town could do. And then we needed to look into more of the legal requirements if we feel we are obligated to do this. I don't think we need specific direction on this issue. I just wanted to make sure we were prepared if the property owners do want to come back and say, hey, this is something that should be taken care of by the town. And so then I was gonna try to keep it 15 minutes per subject for the hour, and so if we would have questions on this specific ones or points of discussion.
Yeah, I have some questions, but I want to see if anybody else does first.
Yeah, I do. I think we discussed this preliminarily, I think at the last meeting, and the fire department, Lions Fire District said they could successfully fight fires up there with the pressure that was there and with their pumper truck. Is that true? I'm looking at it from the safety aspect.
Yeah, I don't know if they would specifically say, they say they can always fight fires, they'll do what they need to do. They'll get a truck at a different hydrant lower down and transport water up. So they would say, yes, they could fight a fire even without a hydrant someplace. They have the capability to fight a fire up on Indian Lookout if there's a fire there.
So I apologize, I may have missed this, but I'm looking at the hydrant results. And it looks like at 450 Vasquez, it was 650 in 2009 and 2012, and then it went down to 540. What do we attribute that reduction in?
There can be variation based on whether or not the tests are done when the pumps out east are actually pumping the water up versus when it's gravity coming down. So that can have some variation. Otherwise, right, I don't know the specifics in those, 15 years. And if we tested it again, I think we still could see it go up or potentially a little bit lower down.
So these all vary depending
Yeah,
on the
they
time of
can.
day?
Yeah.
Okay. And then for cisterns, what does it cost to put a cistern in?
That I don't
Just
know.
ballpark, anybody know? You live up, do you know?
For the home,
Yeah,
oh, I don't know, I'm just, probably like a 3,000 gallon cistern or something,
yeah, just wondering what the cost would be to a homeowner to do that. You try to find out.
Right. Maybe some 110.
5 to 10,
There you go. Search for.
Okay.
We'll go
searching. 5 to 500.
No, 5,000.
And then finally, so this is obviously a safety concern for everybody, I think. It's also a concern when it comes to insurance rates. You know, and I'm wondering how this might affect people's homeowners insurance if we know.
Right, I do not.
Okay. Just things to keep in mind.
I think it could, there are different rates if you have a hydrant within so many feet of your home than if you don't, which we do have a hydrant. I do believe that people in rural areas around lines might pay more than they do in town. But again, it's on several different factors. Response time will still be very quick. Availability of water easily would be another issue this close. But we haven't heard from any homeowners that have indicated that, you know, they've gotten any kind of estimate, but I'm sure also people don't want to point it out to them prematurely either.
Well, I can speak to that personally because we were dropped by our insurance company earlier this year. And it seemed like it was more related to the zip code of 80540. So I think it's a larger problem than just that address. I think it really has to do with the number of claims that have happened over the years in this zip code and insurance companies just backing off. And apparently some companies are dropping Colorado. Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions or comments about this item?
I have a question, just, I'm just curious, if, you know, we had this kind of money to make this kind of investment, I'm just curious whether it would affect development along Vasquez. Would this make it easier for building homes if we were to install some sort of underground vault or building along here to help with the PSI?
Where, right now, there aren't any lots in town. We're talking about on the east side of Vasquez, which is currently Boulder County. Right, so we did have one home that was built there that remained in the county, and they just had to put a cistern in. Again, we didn't review the building permits because it stayed in the county, even though they have the driveway onto Vasquez. But so you could build there still in the county. It would reduce costs for people who they would not have to put in a cistern, and so there would be that cost. Actually, though, let's take that back. New homes are gonna have to have a sprinkler system. If you have an in-home sprinkler, that's another option we didn't go to. The fire hydrant flow drops to 500 gallons per minute. The requirement in the IFC is if you have a home that has fire suppression, it's 500 gallons per minute they require on the fire hydrant.
So to follow up on that, does that mean that if this resident were to install a fire suppression system, then they would only require 500 gallons per minute? So even to retrofit an existing home?
Correct. They could then do their addition. That's the other option. If they installed it on the entire home.
Okay.
There was discussion in the beginning of them just putting fire suppression system on the addition. And the fire department did not like that option, did not think it makes sense when the whole rest of the house can still have a problem. You're adding more potential flammable material. So they said it would be the whole house that would need to have one added.
Question for Brandon. Are we legally bound by the fire district's, policies on this? Do we have the legal right if we wanted to approve an addition that the fire district had said, doesn't meet current standard?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think whether, is the fire district's okay required? What does the fire district, I guess, give you from a building code perspective to check off these things? Is it a recommendation or is it a requirement?
That they're approving it. We ask them for their approval. I would look at it if we've adopted the IFC or the way that, because that's not adopted as it is, we do that slightly differently than we
Right.
do the other code.
Yep. So I guess you have to comply with our own codes, and we adopted the IFC as adopted. It's not necessarily, the fire department couldn't tell us you can't do X, Y, or Z. They're their own authorities, we have our own authorities. But we've adopted the IFC, and if the IFC says we have to do it, we have to follow it. I guess is the way to answer the question.
All right. Okay, thanks, everybody. So to keep us on time, thank you, Aaron. Let's move on to the sandstone box culvert system update.
So with the sandstone box culvert, for those who aren't familiar, if you have it in front of you, it'll probably be easier to try to look through some of the photos and the second page. Starting there, I did want to point out where this culvert is. So there's a larger map that tries to show it with that red line going through. It's between 4th and 5th. The drainage itself starts all the way up at Vasquez, Vasquez Road versus Vasquez Court. Comes down the east side of Steamboat Valley Road, past McCall Alley. It actually goes underground once you get down by Stickney, actually the Seward. The alley between Seward and Stickney is where the very large, longer section of underground culvert is. So the next page in that gave it a little closer detail so you could see. One of the UEB members did go through the culvert and documented where some of the damage is and saw it in there. And so we included those photos so you could see where some of that damage was. As I explained initially, we were looking at the damage and concern that was on, it looks like it's 420 at the address Stickney. And so Engineer Doles and I did go take a look at that because you can get in and we don't have to go very far to start to see some of that damage. And then Engineer Doles did put together an estimate for what it would cost to repair. I'd say on this map, it would have been damage. We were really looking at damage C is the largest section, but if we were able to even do all of A, B, and C, potentially with his estimate there, I didn't think we were that far north to get A. Then we heard about additional damage down by High Street. That brought up some additional concern, and Engineer Doles and I thought we should have someone actually go out and review the entire structure, have a structural engineer review it thoroughly to give us an assessment of their concerns as structural engineers, to try to prioritize the repairs and give us some better cost estimates. So in that one, that the main direction I think we were looking at later was that we should continue. We did go out for an RFP. So we will be getting, hopefully, a couple of proposals. There were 3 contractors who were at the meeting we had Thursday for a pre-proposal, so they could ask questions. The bids are due, I put it in the packet, I don't have it, January, proposals are due January 9th. So the expectation was we'd be bringing that forward at the next board meeting on the 20th. Hopefully they're reasonable and we'd be looking to move forward with having that assessment done.
So I don't, maybe Mark or Greg, you recall, I don't recall discussing this in 2020.
No,
Okay.
I think the dates on that one, May of 2020, and Greg and I had the privilege of meeting the board in April, so.
No, you left the board in 2022.
Well, we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not trying to mess with
Yeah, you're
that.
definitely here in 2020.
Lee Hall, these pictures, brought these to the UEB at some point. And, then he rebrought them to the UEB about 6 months ago or so.
Yeah.
First time I'd seen those pictures. Yeah.
Me too.
So did he go down there in 2020 and take the, is that
Yeah.
how we know there hasn't been a noticeable change?
Well, that's why I'll have the engineer going.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think that's when he went down there.
Does this carry water on
Oh,
a regular
yeah.
basis or
Oh,
just
yeah.
during like downpours?
During any rain event.
Or snow melt?
Okay. And the metal that I see on the roof in some of these pictures, are those pipes,
It had looked, one of them,
sewage pipes?
one of them looked to be a car frame.
Yeah.
That's not-
Somebody tried to fix it. And do we know why there's a concrete pile in there?
The assumption was maybe when they were working on, when you get to Broadway, there is a box culvert, concrete culvert that was put in, and from there south to the creek, it's not in the pictures here, there's more items there, there's an actual standard concrete pipe culvert from Broadway south, so that's where the box flagstone ends on the south end. And so, yeah, we don't know, or somebody just dumped it through a grate. That's right, there is one grate, that location was up by the back of what used to be the pizza bar.
Where does this all empty out?
Between 4th and 5th at the creek, so between the bridge at 5th and before you get to 4th, you can see there are actually 2 concrete oval culverts into the creek
At the curve right there.
between, I guess you can see this.
So if this whole thing collapsed and got plugged out during a rain event, we're talking about water backing up in people's yards, the streets not draining properly. What's the worst case on this?
Right, so we did in 2015, when we had the hailstorm flooding, one of the houses up on Seward, I think it was Seward, did have damage. That was actually even above this. So some of the open culverts also can get blocked, and there's some, but yes, if that was damaged, it depends where. If it was to block, let's say, just north of the pizza bar location, with the outdoor store now, then you would have flooding all right there in the 400 block of Main Street.
So the bids that you're getting, it's just for fixing these closed culverts where the red line is on the map, right? Cause I
Right,
think
there-
we need to take a look, I mean, you know, we have all those open culverts and eventually those are gonna need to be addressed as well. Open ditches.
I have a question regarding these bids. So do we need both the concrete lid and the replacement of the box culverts? Or
We
is it
don't
one or
know
the
what,
other?
right, we don't know what really would need to be done. When I look at the portions I've seen inside, the walls look to be okay, but again, I'm not a structural engineer. It's possible that we could take the roof off and leave it as an open one. If you go down the alley between Fourth and Fifth, between Stickney and Seward, or actually just from Seward, you can see the very large 4 foot by 4 foot. It's really nice
Trees.
historic
Yeah.
thing to look at. But those are the ones that are the biggest concern because of the amount of money it would take. We could clean out some of the metal pipe, like there's metal pipe from Reese down to the alley that goes right under Reese. That one we could probably maintain, even if things get in there and damage it, we'd have the capability to at least hire somebody to come out and jet and dig through something that's only a couple of feet in diameter up when you're at Reese. This one, again, being the 4 by 4 almost, and being made out of flagstone, the town doesn't have the capability to go in there and try to repair
What's the bids you're gonna get? Are they gonna break it down by component? You know, fix A, B, C, or it goes as a group and then?
that. Yes, we've asked them to look at, and to document the various damage that they find and let us know what it would be to repair each section and prioritize which one do they see as the one that's gonna go first. So which one is the highest priority, then what's the cost of the various repairs.
I assume if the A, B, and C damages, if that were to collapse, and from the pictures, that's what looks to be the closest, then you would get back up throughout the neighborhood probably from a big rain event. Sure.
Yeah.
Right, it would go, again, it would be down probably inside that with what's collapsed, you're still gonna have a drop there, but once it starts to stop, yes, it's gonna still come right through. I don't know how much it would go back in. Stickney has drainages on both sides of it that take the drainage from the road and drop it into that box culvert. So as that all flooded past where it caved in, some of it, I don't know if all of it would go back into those inlets that are on Stickney.
Dave, I think you had something?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious what the long-term impact could be. I mean, we're talking about damage for A to D, but what about E to Z? This goes under several buildings, you know.
So
What happens in a couple of years, we see some damage under Lions Physical Therapy Building, for instance, on High Street. So I mean, that just gives me heartburn thinking about what the impacts could be.
So they are gonna do the entire from Stickney to Broadway. We're asking them to go.
That's what the RFP is gonna.
Yes. Right now, they're to tell us the entire run that is the flagstone portion of this.
They're gonna tell us what, that it's good or bad?
They see damage. The
Condition
request is to
and
let us
priority.
know what damage they see and how much of a concern, if they can list that. Or to prioritize them, what looks like it's the most concern. But yeah, it is, right, it goes underneath some buildings. It's also been there for 100.
And they'll come up with options. I mean, it seems to me if we can pipe this thing and then backfill it or something, this is all gonna collapse at some point.
This is all part of that bigger stormwater master plan.
Yeah.
And if anything, it should be probably until the other two are larger. Second, what are the names of the basin? There's names of basin A, B, and C are larger. This could probably remain the same or go smaller. But if you had just this, they may say.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if, once we get the RFP, the
Yeah.
responses back, and are we slapping Band-Aids on the problem?
Well, let's see. what
We
they
are,
come
we
back.
have though, again, the $13 million is that this is the largest of the stormwater concerns, this was the highest priority of the UEB after the stormwater plan came out because it goes to fifth, but it's, again, the most expensive. So that was part of why we went back to going now to second and third. It's something that's actually doable where we could work on at least a 10-year storm event on second or third. We're looking at the safe route sidewalk. When I mentioned last time how we wanted to try to now look at what we could combine. We do have to keep this in mind. There are some other options to try to get stormwater over to fourth and fifth. That was one of the items that I thought of again, if the Boone parcel was to go in as development. That I was saying that those type of things were okay because they should be required to put the water tank, again, I don't know that they have money, not for affordable housing, they wouldn't. But they could also put in storm drainage all the way under Fifth down to the creek. To take, because a lot of the stormwater does come off upper Fifth, and it's not really upper Fifth, but it's Fifth at Steamboat, and it drops down in at McCall Alley. So you would take a portion of that off. How much could you then reduce this? So there are some other options in the stormwater master plan about moving water to fourth and fifth, so you wouldn't have to have that old box culvert. Maybe you could do something smaller, but even that is a little bit of work. And just to note that there are probably historic concerns with this. When we did the work on High Street, we actually avoided that whole area because of the historic concern. And again, that was federally funded, which we know makes it more concerning. They had somebody on standby to watch and make sure we didn't hit the actual box culvert.
So the box culvert is a historical,
Yes.
it's like a Roman aqueduct.
Have you walked the alleys to look at it? It's beautiful.
That's pretty cool.
It's,
It's absolutely.
it's one of the
beautiful.
earliest features in town, so obviously they knew way back then that those heavy rainstorms.
But as far as historic, I've been told if you have a 50-year-old piece of concrete pipe, that's historic. That when they were looking, when we just did Broadway, there were some concerns about the vault there. Because that's where I told you it ends at Broadway and it becomes an actual oval culvert, but that's still over 50 years old. And they're like, if they had to dig it up, there could be historic, so.
And I'm just, there's always been a distinction between if something, a building, a house, a culvert apparently is more than 50 years old, it's eligible to be listed for a number of.
Yeah, it doesn't
historic
mean
things.
it's necessarily.
But, for example, the old portion of Town Hall, we looked at it after the flood and it was eligible to be listed in the state historic records, and we decided not to do it because of the potential restrictions in doing anything with it. So why do we not have that option with an old culvert that's more than 50 years old and eligible to be listed on the historic? You know, we just choose not to apply for designation.
Could be, I think if, once we get a basic report on this thing, we should do some other research at the museum. You know, I don't know if at any time, I know it's not listed in our Redstone buildings, but I don't know if it's.
But if it's
listed.
functionally obsolete, then-
Obviously,
But
it's
it's
eligible,
not.
but the question is like.
We use it all the time.
Take Town Hall, take the old portion of Town Hall, we decided not to pursue a historic designation for that, for the specific reason that it was gonna tie our hands, we thought, on doing things in the future with that part of the building. So why don't we have that option with this culvert?
Well, I think we do.
We do, I don't think we've discussed it yet
It
as a
hasn't
local,
gone-
state or national.
Yeah, it hasn't even gotten that far. Let's get the,
Yeah.
reports back and see.
I mean, it seems like it would only matter if you were using federal funding or state
Yeah.
funding that required us to,
To do that,
do
but
the
a local
historical stuff.
designation. Yeah.
yeah. but-
I think we're a ways away from determining that. And I think that, it would probably be useful to have a longer talk about the stormwater master plan
Mhm.
and,
Yeah.
think about where this fits.
Is it mentioned in the story?
Yeah, the fourth, fifth, and then they have two options like they do for most areas.
Okay, so let's close this conversation. Let's move on to the wastewater treatment improvement options.
So on the wastewater treatment, options, I've put together, you know, they asked us for an update on this. The UEB hasn't had a chance to go through this. I was putting it together to present to them at their meeting Wednesday. So there will be some more discussion on that. But I put together what I have so far after having someone come out and we had some testing done with a replacement for the centrifuge. For those who have been involved in it, they are aware that that's one of the items of concern. It breaks down and it costs $60,000 to fix. We then have concerns because we're hauling sludge, which is really expensive. It actually also it needs an operator there all the time because of its high speed and high intensity. So there's some real reasons to look at options with regard to what we do to dewater the sludge. And so rather than this fast spinning centrifuge, there were a couple of press options, and this is one of them. And so they came out and did some testing. I specifically did not ask them for the cost because I want to make sure I'm careful if we go out for bids that we're not excluding them because they've talked to us ahead of time and then they gave us options and sometimes you can't always come back in their bid because you have been working more as a consultant. We can talk to them about that, maybe going out for an RFP. I think we need to first go out and have a design done on what we want to do together as a package. So I've also added in, we have the previous concerns were the blowers, they're what put air into the sludge, help fight the BOD. That was what we previously had looked at, and we had our plant re-rated to allow for more of the high strength waste. And in order to do that, we had to show that we had a plan for construction to add air into the sludge. So back in 2019 or so, we did have that done. JVA did a whole study, showed what could be done to actually allow us to take on more high strength waste. So that's what allowed our plant to be up in rating of 700 thereabouts. Pounds of BOD or high strength waste went up to 1,500 pounds of high strength waste. So basically almost doubled, more than doubled it. We've never done that work. That went into, it's a long drawn out process through CDPHE and our permit and changing our permit to try to make this work. And then by the permit came back and changed. And at the very end, when I thought we might be ready, they said, okay, wait, now something has changed with some of the levels on arsenic in particular. And JVA would have to go back and show how we can now meet this new arsenic level that came out in the meantime. So we were doing the Honeywell litigation and said, let's wait until we have hopefully some type of resolution to that, or just move forward with having them, JVA, redo what they needed to try to move forward with the blowers. So again, we have a sort of separate process. This is one that we need to get done. Can go into a lot more detail on the Eastern Corridor was allowed based on this work being done. The permit there says you have to have the design of this. In researching it, it does not specifically say it has to be built, but I think it should, and I think that was their understanding. So I think there are some concerns that we need to move forward on this, or we need to have Brandon review it for legal concerns of us expanding the Eastern Corridor without solid plans to move forward with something on this area. And then the third section I put in was concerns with the UV, because I also have concerns. That's one where, yes, if that goes, we can't let things go out to the creek because it's gonna contaminate the creek level. So that was an area that was of concern. It's small, it is very old. I've already had worked through times when they're having trouble changing out a UV lamp. The new ones are actually self-scrub cleaning. Usually you put them in, there's a lot of newer models there for the UV system. The UV is in the same room as where we would get non-potable water. So you can get this water right, again, it's treated, and it's probably cleaner than what's in the creek, but it's still non-potable water because you can't just use it as potable water. But you can take it then and clean in the plant. You could spray it where water is needed in the plant. That was supposed to be one of the savings that we never got because I don't know, it's maybe as long as this table, you can get like 50 gallons a minute and you need 500 gallons a minute of non-potable water. So they can't use it. We've never been able to use the non-potable water there because it was never really built properly. The non-potable water is something that the odor control system is supposed to be using. So in that last report, I gave some information. That's one of the reasons they've always had to make the UV system work, but never as it really intended because they haven't had non-potable water. When you put in potable water, it kills the odor control is actually bugs eating stuff that cause the odor. And the chlorine is not great for the bugs, so they have to add stuff back in for the bugs to eat and try to survive. Or if you got non-potable water, you're giving them what they want, and it is all functioning together. So the UV, the non-potable, and the odor control also being one that's a big concern for the public with the odor was the third area. So when I look at it, I was gonna present them to the utility board, these three areas, have them review it and see if there are other areas of concern. This was really just a starting point, so we'd have something to work off of and try to develop more of a plan.
Okay, so you're taking this to the UEB on Wednesday night?
Yeah.
And you guys will talk about it on Wednesday night? So this is an opportunity for us to ask questions about this. Will obviously come back to us after it goes to the UEB.
Question. What is the source of the non-potable water that you would use? I understand there's a problem with dividing it. Where does the non-potable water come from?
That's the water that's coming out of the sludge that would go to the creek. So rather than just sending it out to the creek, you're taking it, it's at the very end of the whole treatment process. Right after it's come to the UV is the last part of the treatment.
It's water that's been filtered out of the inflow.
Sewage,
It's
yeah.
not from the river or from a well or.
Correct.
or
No,
something
Just
like that.
reusing the water.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I know you explained why you didn't put price tags on these in your memo, but looking back at the JVA study, they put a price tag on the screw press of $860,000 and on a new UV system at $340,000. And they had a general price tag on what they call the re-rating improvements at about 1.6 million. Is what you've got described in here as far as the blowers and rerouting the line, does that correspond exactly to what JVA was calling the re-rating improvements, or is it something more or less?
I don't think so. I needed to look in deeper because the re-rating they gave us 2019 or 2020, granted it's been a few years, was 300,000. So that's what we were estimating back then to pay to do that work. And even when the plan came out, it was something I wanted to try to understand why they're up at the new cost that they're at. If they've added something else in there, if they're including work on the actual sludge holding tanks. Because that's also where some of the aeration is, and they do have some work on that. And I'm not sure if that's included in there or not.
Yeah, I tried to find it the last couple of days of what they were calling the re-rating improvements. They never really explained in their report what that, they never broke it down into, I'm sure it includes the blowers and the line and everything, but they didn't, it may include more things. So that's something that I guess they could still answer that question if they asked them to have a set of cost components that equal their $1.6 million. Okay.
So when this comes back to us with the UAB recommendations, will we have an estimate of costs like we had for the stormwater culvert? Or do we have to wait for the RFP?
We could have a high level estimate of cost, again, based on what Trustee Browning is looking at in the JVA study. We won't know for sure till we go out, and we don't have an estimate of what the design is. We should try to see if engineer Doles can actually come up with, or maybe, I don't know, the UEB even, we have some wastewater, at least one on, who's very involved in wastewater. but to try to come up with a high level cost. Right now, we're looking at what it would be just for the design of this, and then once we get the design done, we'll have an idea of the construction cost.
So do we know, just generally how much money we'd wind up saving if, we used a press instead of the centrifuge and sludge hauling?
We'd have to look into that. That's one of the items I want. We have some numbers there that we can try to get Ramey to come up with based on the drier solids, that it was slightly drier. And then we have to put in the, electrical cost, the savings from energy, from not using that, the savings in, maintenance. We discussed that a little bit, the press operators and myself when I was there. So I could get more of that from them.
So we did do that screw press trial at one point in time, so that would probably give us some data on what the savings are versus,
We did a rotary press
okay.
then. This was a screw press, so I do still have the rotary press that we did before. The really nice thing when they were there is they can actually take the centrifuge off of, it's on, I forget what it's called, but this little trolley that moves back and forth. They can take that off and put this new press right on top. So it seems like there should be
It's
a lot of
frame.
cost
Yeah,
savings.
Plug and play, yeah.
like a frame.
It'd be good to know.
So the, rotary fan press was estimated in JVA, I had it at 1.8 million. And then the, screw press was like 880,000. But on one of them, we have to modify the physical plant to accommodate it, right?
The rotary press before, we would have had to modify that. I remember when we looked at it, it was bigger. And we would have to move
Expand the room.
stuff in that room around.
For the screw press?
Rotary
press.
which is the screw press. I'd have to look up to try to explain the difference.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I just remember hearing that one of them is you have to redo some of the physical plant
Correct.
to accommodate it.
What we had done a few years ago, the talk was we would have to redo it. The one I just had done, we would not have to redo anything.
The one we did a trial on, was it?
I did roll.
Yeah, we did
Right, the
roll.
rotary was before, we just had somebody out last month.
For the screw, yeah. So do we probably have data then on
Yeah.
what the sludge content was versus, so we could probably figure out fairly
Yeah.
easily what the savings would be for each type.
It's just a matter of putting that all together.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be great to know. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to our final item? All right, Longmont Electric Territory.
So with the Longmont Electric territory, staff has looked at this over the years before, talked about it. More in regards to Poudre Valley at one point, but also with annexations coming in, what would we do? We never really moved forward. It wasn't pressing, so it didn't take the front and center. Now with things moving forward, we really wanted to look at what the options are. I've had now more interaction with staff, Longmont. So I initially started talking at one of the CAMU meetings to the, I don't know, Assistant Deputy Director or Utilities, but at Longmont, and he then pulled up some information that was done back in 2011. And this had basically first some information in a letter that would discuss what we might do. But then at some point, I don't know if it was just Longmont, if it was Longmont and Lyons together, but there was a draft agreement that was developed. So that was included, pretty sure that was in the packet. And what I think is nice about this territory transfer agreement is this is really outlining what we would do if we want to move forward. It doesn't state you're taking over any specific properties. It allows you to take over one property at a time as the town desired. So it's really just a outline or a way to go forward. We'll still want to work out some of the details. Attorney Dittman did speak with their attorney at Longmont. And they were hopefully, I thought maybe even by this meeting, I was going to have some numbers on some of the properties. I think that's really the big question is what are the costs going to be? Again, we can review this in more detail for other legal concerns, what might be out there, with regards to different aspects of the agreement, I guess I would say, but it really seemed like the costs were the big one. And then the end, when we're looking at properties that don't have anything currently, so the big one that we're looking at right now is generator development 4652, right across the street. If you all went out there to look at it, that property, they're ready to move forward. Right, so they want to know what they would need to do for electric. There is no Longmont Electric there. They removed all of that when they sold the property. So there are no Longmont assets that we would have to buy. It's our, one of the cabinets that we have that our line runs in from our substation is right next to the driveway. So even when Longmont's staff was out looking at it, when they first called in, they said, oh, well, Lions is right there. Why don't you talk to them? And that was another aspect to get going. So I added in the agenda also, the main item I think that would be looking for some direction later on is what they call this, exception of certified area. They called it an invasion agreement here. And I was like, okay, that sounds a little strong, but if you read the December 4th letter from the city of Longmont to me, you know, it talks about allowing us to take this one property having the agreement completed, because I asked them if we could do just temp power. It gives sort of, I guess I would say, a way out. It says at the end that, you know, upon reasonable notice by Longmont that it elects to resume service to the customer in the unlikely event the territory transfer is not completed. So if we don't do a territory transfer, they could go back and take over service. Now that would be cost to somebody, either property owner or the town, if we move forward with this. So that's where I see some concern. If we put it on the developer, they're aware right now that we're trying to negotiate this. But if it was something that it looked like we would be moving forward, we do. That's why I was hoping to have the number. I was actually gonna ask them, since I don't have it before, if we wanted to move forward with this, I would try to get that number before moving forward, even with this one. So we would have some idea of what the cost would be just for that one property. If we don't have all, they're putting together the properties west of there. So the Tebow one we're talking about, I think any of the properties in that area that we could annex in, they're also then giving us the costs for the properties that they currently service in town, which are the distillery, the Egati dispensary, the Circle K, and then what was Clark's Park there.
So I know, thank you for that information, and, I know you talked about getting some estimates. I know, Mark, you were emailing earlier about some additional numbers that you were wanting to see. You wanna talk about those?
Yeah, I guess one thing off the top of the bat, before we can talk about cost to us, is the difference in electric rates that some Alliance business would pay to get power from Alliance versus power to Longmont. But would it cost them on their monthly electric bills to have service from Alliance instead of Longmont?
That's gonna be included in their lost revenue when they give us the values of the properties. So I thought we would see then that would be one of the components we would have for those properties where there's lost
They
revenue.
pay our rate.
Yeah, they
They
pay
pay our
our,
rate, and at least my conversations with Longmont has been, we're not bound to that statute, and we're not necessarily saying we're gonna base it off revenue at all.
But no, I thought he's asking, you know, how
My
the
question
loss.
is,
Yeah,
how much
my
the
question-
lost revenue Longmont is?
Yeah.
A business in line
With
that's
the
getting
customer,
power.
how are our rates compared to Longmont?
Yeah.
we're slightly above them, but not,
When they have a demand charge on the
It could be cheaper.
commercial,
Yeah.
so the ones that I wanted to see, again, the generator development's not gonna have that because they don't provide any electricity there, but going forward, it might be, what would they be paying Longmont versus what would they be paying us?
Yeah, because Lions businesses obviously want to keep their costs as low as possible, so that's an
We can
issue.
look at that.
Yeah.
We need to look
Their
at not
cost
just
per
from the
kilowatt.
town perspective, but from the business's perspective too.
And this agreement does allow it to go the reverse way too. If we wanna ask Longmont to take over areas, we could do that.
I think we're more concerned about existing customers,
Yeah.
like converting existing customers
What is the
from.
difference in the
If
rate?
you new customers, like I think they should be ours, I mean, but existing, so long as we can do it. Existing, what you're saying is, are the rates going to increase if so much?
Same thing for a new customer, they're gonna wanna know if they're gonna plan on having a business here 20 years, they're gonna know what the difference in their.
Yeah.
In their business, their cost of doing business are and getting power from us versus online. I would
Yeah.
expect them to take a long time.
I would think all in is probably negligible, but it's gonna be
So.
difficult because of the different rate structures. And depending on what type of business goes in there, so if you're, you know, an ice cream shop with a bunch of freezers, you have a very high demand potentially versus a sporting goods store, right? I mean, it's just tough,
Right.
yeah,
We could take a couple of their bills if they're willing to share them and
fair.
put them in our system and see what it would be.
But I would ask, are we looking to make sure the business has the lowest rate? That's just one consideration potentially.
We wanna make Lions a good place to do business, and, you know, I'm looking at it from kind of EBC standpoint, now, if it's gonna cost a local business money to switch from Longmont to Lions, why would they wanna do it? It's gonna be a significant cost.
Right, that's an existing customer, the new
Or a new
customer.
customer too, if they could stay with Longmont and keep their electric rates lower, if they're gonna use a lot of electricity.
That's the one I would say, I don't know that we wanna look, is that something the board wants to look at? That's giving up a new customer without someone who's already paying? Okay, because we could also go the other route and say, should Longmont then take over existing Lions customers because it's cheaper?
Well, then there's an issue, does any new customer, including the big generator, the generator property, are they gonna pay an electric community investment fee, $4,500?
Mhm.
Would they do that if they were added to Lions system?
If they're at a Longmont, they'd probably be paying a lot more because of the extensions would be much
We'll
bigger.
do it as a follow-up to find out some of
And
the
then
differences.
I believe there's a code
Rate structure.
provision that basically says the customer pays the cost of extending service to their property, correct?
Yes.
So that's another potential impact on businesses. Yeah, and just to get all the numbers out here, one of the potential benefits for the town of adding more customers is we get more base fees, you got more customers, but that's $18 a month, right, for a commercial business and so the actual additional amount of base fees we would get from the 3 or 4 or 5 new properties is not a huge amount. Like it'd be way less than adding 40 new customers at the Summit Housing at $13 a month, which is what it is for residential, so. You know, I guess what I'd like to see from a board member's perspective is it gonna be a cost to the town? What's the cost gonna be? And when you say the town, it's really the ratepayers of the town. Really, another way to phrase that is, if it's gonna create some cost for the electric utility, how much are other ratepayers gonna pay to add these new businesses on? And then looking at it from the perspective of the business, I think it's important from our businesses' perspective to try to keep their costs of doing business as low as possible. And if that means staying with Longmont instead of coming to Lions, then that's something that I think we need to educate them about, and that they should be quite interested in.
And I just want to add, you know, you don't mention in here whether the UEB has discussed this. Has the UEB discussed this?
Briefly, a couple
Yeah,
times,
we
high
briefly
level.
discussed it, just to say, and we voted for Aaron to pursue it in getting the numbers so we could evaluate it.
So the
We haven't
UEB will
gotten
have
any
more
numbers yet.
discussions.
What's that?
So the UEB will have more discussions about this?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Because one of the things I'm wondering is whether and how this might affect any time of use decisions that we make. And maybe it won't.
Well, it all plays in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got, there's more non-residential customers who benefit from time of use than staying on the old plan, but there's some really big energy users who are at a disadvantage if they're open in the evening.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think for this, the request for the direction is, are we comfortable moving forward with that letter to provide town power to generator development? Or we can tell them to go to Longmont and get the cost, and then if Longmont connects, then it's gonna cost even more for them to come back.
Yeah.
What's the deadline for making a decision?
They wanted to know as soon as they could. I told Longmont I was gonna give them temporary power unless they had some concerns. And that was, I guess, they decided, okay, they came up with this letter as their way to say, okay, here's what we want for you to even provide. This doesn't talk specifically about temporary power. This is about providing power to them while we worked on that agreement. And so is it something that the language in there is comfortable enough to go back and let Longmont take over if we don't want to do it? And again, that has to be, the developer knows that that's a possibility. The town may decide they don't want to do this electricity. If Longmont has to come in and take it back over, there's going to be a cost to you as the developer, or do you want us to go ahead and move forward with this now?
Brandon, do you have any concerns with this letter?
No, this letter, I mean, it doesn't really commit us to anything necessarily. I mean, I know for the Eastern Corridor, it's gonna be much cheaper for those new customers to join our system versus Longmont. In terms of the extension, I mean, I'm talking about rates, but the extension should be cheaper for our system, much cheaper, I would think. And so I think, I would think a rational business owner, those costs would mean they would stick with our system anyways. And so if we were to do that on Longmont, they're gonna be paying twice, potentially. And the upfront cost would be probably pretty extensive.
Is generator developer, whatever they call it, are they going to get a comparison between our rates and Longmont's rates?
I mean, typically you wouldn't, because you wouldn't have a choice in most situations.
Right.
Yeah,
But they do have a choice.
if we give them a choice.
Their bigger concern is who can do it the soonest and the most efficiently, and they're the ones who asked, can you guys hook up power?
Right, okay.
And do they know the cost? Have they been given the cost it would take to do that?
We don't have it yet. They haven't given, we were gonna do temp power, and I had an invoice that I gave to them, an estimate of cost. They wanted to hold off, and they're trying to get their permanent power layout in place so that they can put temp power where one of their transformers will go. They expect to have 3 transformers required, 3-phase power to at least one of those. So they wanted to get some of that together and try to put in one permanent one as their temporary power. So I need to wait for that to get another estimate to them.
So that might be the easiest part of them all, but the tougher one comes like with the Tebow annexation, because all those buildings now are on Longmont.
Correct.
So if we provide them Lions service, did I not read in here that we owe Longmont 12 months of normal service? I didn't see that in the agreement.
I mean, you did, but I would disregard anything in that agreement that concerns cost, because they've already told me they're not gonna follow that.
Okay,
Longmont said they're not gonna follow those terms.
No, because that law does not apply to municipal utilities when you acquire property from other municipal utilities. And so,
Right, no, we're talking about the actual letter from Longmont with 12 months of prior, the statute you're talking about, is the REA statute. or the-
correct, which is referenced in
They've got their
agreement.
own terms that are a bit different from that statute in their draft letter.
We were talking about the agreement that was in which it is
It's in the packet.
The agreement in the packet pulls directly from the REA statute, which they said they're not gonna follow.
I think there's some differences.
Yeah, that's not exactly what's in the REA statute. That's something different.
But I do, that's why I
Maybe
wanted
that's where they took that from.
to get these numbers, to have an idea of the cost, so that we would know what they're saying.
What would Lions actually have to do physically to connect that property to the Lions system? You said there's a cabinet there. When we were on the property, there's a whole set of above ground power lines down at western end, I guess, at that round edge of that property. I don't know, are those
No, they're Longmont, over between the Dirk's property to it, so that's what Longmont looked at, bringing lines from there up to the north versus the driveway in is where we have one of our sectionalizer cabinet. We would have to put in a transformer. I don't know for sure that they would have to add a transformer, but they might if they just have one small transformer for that house. Then they would be putting in their own transformer and running, probably putting in a couple of utility poles and running the overhead for them to get the power further west.
We wouldn't have to actually put in any lines or poles.
Yeah, no poles, we would put in underground line. From that cabinet is just the power running in at the right higher voltage, so we have to put in a transformer that takes it off of those main lines and gives them the power they need.
So we have an existing underground line on that side of the highway running the length of that property and so.
Yeah, it crosses the highway right there from the north side to the south side. And then continues all the way to 36 and into town.
Okay, yeah, because I knew we had lines on the other side. But it crosses under right about their property.
Yeah,
Okay.
So you tell me I can totally disregard Article 4, remuneration or.
I'm looking at, this is different from the agreement that I saw last.
It's in section 2.
I see, that's what I'm reading right now. What I will say is that, like, for the think generator property, there is no service being provided there, and they agreed if there wasn't service being provided, we wouldn't pay for that. In terms of future profits, it would only be whatever the cost of assets was.
And any of that will be spelled out in any agreement that.
Yeah, I mean, what I was told at least is that they're gonna work, Daryl at Longmont is gonna work and figure out a cost for each of these properties and we'll walk through what it is. But it's significantly less than what they originally thought it was gonna be because we're not using the REA statute and a number of these properties are not being served.
Well, this too will come back to us then.
Yeah, it's gonna come back,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, great.
When did you get this?
that's the one they sent.
Just
I
over?
thought you had that too.
So I wanted to specifically reference the REA statute and that's when Jamie called me and we said, why are we using this agreement?
The old one back in 2011 did fit that up, but this was something different. I figured this was something Longmont had come up with recently.
I have not seen this one.
Well, thanks so much, Erin, for putting all this information together on all these subjects. Really appreciate it and for giving us the opportunity to chat about it early. So we're gonna see all of them again at some point. So, so really appreciate that. Thank you.
And again, it's that letter, if I should sign that or not.
Yeah, that'll come up during general
Right.
business.
The general business.
Yep, we have a general business. Okay, let's end the workshop. We'll take a 10-minute break. I know it's the last meeting of the year.
We're all well out.
Right. Okay, so I will call the December 16th Lions Board of Trustee meetings to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Rogan,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Williams,
President.
Trustee Hamrick,
Present.
Trustee Dottie,
Present.
Trustee Lowell,
Present,
Trustee Browning,
Present?
and Trustee Delman.
Present.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I'll read the land acknowledgement, then we'll take a reflective moment of silence. We must acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Thank you, everyone. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything anyone would like to modify? Call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. All right, now is the time for audience business and follow-up. If you'd like to address the board, come on up. State your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. 4 minutes, sorry, 4 minutes. And if you could keep your comments to town matters, it would be much appreciated. The board will respond afterwards.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everybody who's here. I'm here, Bill Sparks, 2169 Apple Valley Road, Lyons. I'm here tonight for 2 purposes. One is both on behalf of Lyons Community Foundation. As most of you know, I co-chair that with Corey Pierce. And I noticed on your consent agenda tonight, you have a resolution to approve the agreement to set up a mental health wellness program. And it says, and I just want to clarify, Community Foundation of Boulder County. For those of you who may not be aware or have forgotten, Lyons Community Foundation, full name is Lyons Community Foundation Advisory Fund. We are a fund of the Community Foundation of Boulder County. So all we do goes through them. They approve all of our grants, they approve all of our scholarships, they approve any expenditures of our money. So while we seem fairly independent and have a very good relationship with them, they are the oversight agency. And I happen to serve on that board also, so I have an opportunity to review everything that goes on. Work closely with the town, with Victoria, to get this agreement put together. I know it's on the consent agenda, but if anybody has questions tonight, hopefully can, between Victoria and myself, we can answer those questions for you. We envision this working as a grant, and it may or may not be within our normal grant cycle. It'll depend on when we get it up and running and funded, but that it will be a grant that would be funded through a portion of the sales tax dollars from the town. And we want to thank you for we see this as a vote of confidence from the town and Lyons Community Foundation. And in the partnership, we've been able to work with the town over all these many years. I haven't been here all that long compared to many here, but I hope that Lyons Community Foundation continues to engender your support throughout, and we will do it with this grant and this fund. So that, thank you. If you have questions, I'll be here. Second point is I've shared with you that we are in our annual appeal phase. Many of you helped us by starting a matching fund that reach $20,000 plus or minus. By last count, we have had additional donations exceeding $15,000. So we are just a hair's breadth away from getting all that matching money, and we are optimistic that we will reach it and exceed it. So I just wanted to give you that report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would you like to address the board?
Nope, it's just.
I'm Chelsea.
Oh, I know.
No, I just was
Okay,
here.
okay,
Thanks, Howard.
welcome. Okay, well, would anyone on the board care to respond to Mr. Sparks?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, the use of these tax monies, which are really from the marijuana tax, is what we kind of looked at as, gauge these for community mental health purposes was a big, goal and emphasis of former Mayor Angelo. And I did go to visit him last week in his rehab hospital and told him that this was in the works and was going to be done, and he was overjoyed. He was fully able to understand it and actually like shook my hand and everything when I saw it. So, this culminates something that he worked on for a long time, and I think, it'll work well for all parties.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd just like to say how grateful I am that we have such a strong partnership with the Community Foundation of Boulder County and LCF here locally. So I'm really thankful that you're willing to manage this fund on our behalf, and I know that these local tax dollars will put to good use. So thank you for making that happen.
Anyone else? I just like to echo what everybody else has already said. I'm glad that former Mayor Angelo was pleased. I'm surprised he didn't stand up and jump up and down.
He wishes he could have.
I'm sure. And I too, I'm so grateful for the partnership with Lions Community Foundation. I think, you know, we as a board recognize that we don't have the expertise to decide how these funds should be allocated, but that Lions Community Foundation does. And so we're so appreciative. And I also sent a note to Tatiana Hernandez, thanking her as well.
Thank you.
Administrator Simonson, would you?
No, I just want to thank Mr. Sparks. It's always a pleasure to work with LCF and found this pretty easy to work through. So great, we'll be glad to have this addressed by the person.
Terrific. And thanks to staff too for making this happen with us. Yeah. Okay, terrific. Next item, staff reports, Boulder County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Sears.
So, good evening.
Hello.
Not a whole lot. Christmas parade went fantastic. It was like the biggest turnout I've seen.
Me too. Yeah, it was big.
That's awesome. And then again, Public Works, those guys are just out there hauling cones and working hard. So I appreciate their help because we were kind of understaffed, with this, but we made it work and, appreciate their help. And also all the lights around town look really good. I meant to say that last week or last meeting, but, so there's been some reckless driving people, I guess, kind of in Bone Park doing donuts the last, kind of went on a couple weeks ago and then stopped. But then I guess, there was a vehicle over the weekend that was kind of driving reckless, almost hit someone and almost hit a dog, something along those lines. So what I'm getting at is when something like that happens, just, I say it all the time, but just please call us, because if you send an email to someone in town, especially if it's on a weekend or, you know, whatever it is, you know, we can't really do a whole lot when we don't have any information. So, you know, I keep, you know, it's good to get the information so I can send it out to the team, but, you know, that's something that should be called in for sure, because that way we can hopefully, you know, ask the person who's calling in more questions to get more information on the vehicle or whatever it might be, or direction of travel, and then we can go try and find them. So, and use our flock cameras to help with that. So, just please call if you see something and you feel it rises to the level of at least an email to the town, just call it. Call 911, you're not gonna get in trouble. So, that just helps us out. And then I'll be, Saturday, I'm heading out of town. I'll be back the following Saturday, so just a week, but I'll still be available. So if anything goes down, my phone's always on. And then, for the stats, our call new, app or program, for some reason went down, last week when I was doing these, and I checked today and it's still down. So they're still working on it. They've been trying to make it better and adding things and stuff like that. So I think it just crashed. So sorry I don't have the calls for you guys. For tickets, we're up 72 from last year at 639. December, it's kind of like opposite of last month. We're down, we only had one so far this month, and we had 11 last month, or last year in December 1st to the 12th. Accidents, again, I think everyone did it again, but we have no accidents. We're down or up 11, which as we started the year, it was like, we had like 20 within like the first 2-3 months, so, hope that continues. And then just with flock, I didn't have, had some missing days from last year, so I couldn't give you a perspective from last year, to this year, but so far from the 1st to the 12th, we've had just over 90,000 cars coming and going from town. And then, on Main Street coming into town, almost, 28,500, so. Pretty slow, but it's that time of year, so.
Thank you.
all I got.
Any questions?
Okay, so I see a total number of vehicles coming to town on Saturday, December 7th, the day of the parade, as 6,735. How many would you estimate stopped to watch the parade?
4,321.
It did feel like a lot of people.
No, I didn't realize until I drove down, man, I'm like, holy cow, this street is jam packed.
Yeah.
Perfect weather, couldn't ask
Yeah.
for a better day, so,
It was an amazing parade.
yeah. And last year, I think it was real windy and
Yeah.
really cold, so I don't think we had a good turnout, but yeah, no, it's went smooth, so.
That's great.
Just where I was standing outside the market, there were a lot of people I didn't recognize, and I wondered how many people came from outside of town to our little parade. I mean, honestly, my husband says this every year. He's like, I feel like I just walked onto a movie set. You just can't make up the magic of this parade, and I love that the theme was, magic. But I was like, we don't have, I mean, Alliance just has magic. Like it just happens naturally. Like I feel like there was a lot of effort involved with floats and things, but I just feel like a parade down Main Street is just like stepping onto a movie set. It really is. It's really special.
The parade was advertised actually in Channel 9 News.
Aha.
And it was listed as, they listed the top 10 parades to see in the state, and we were number 5.
What?
Oh, wow.
Who was number one?
Denver.
How do we get there? Okay.
Well,
Well, and our parade was the same night as Boulder's parade, so.
And Denver's too.
We're working that out for next year.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but no, it seemed to be a really successful, but the weather has so much.
Oh, sure. Number 5.
Wow, that's surprising, that's awesome.
Wow.
But you know, do
We're
business,
Next year will be 2.
business that night?
I talked to a few of them personally, and they had all said they had a very successful day and night. The day as well, you have the
Right.
artisan market there.
Yeah.
And, I am trying to remember what Kim said for numbers, but I think we had, close to 1,500 people attend the artisan market between the 2 days. So you have those folks, they're all needing to eat somewhere for their, it's a big draw to the community, especially in the winter months.
Well, thank you, Sergeant Sears. Thanks for keeping us
Yep.
safe. Thanks for looking the other way when Santa flew by.
Yeah, no, we didn't get any complaints, so it's,
We appreciate that, right, Santa?
yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Wait, did we see them?
No.
All right, have a Merry Christmas.
Safe travels. All right, administrator report, please.
Thank you. We had several components to the admin report this week. Same Brain Trail extension is going well. They're starting to clear, well, more than start. The trail is pretty much able to be seen through its entirety now. Working on those culverts and crossings now for Rough and Ready and Palmerton ditches. And we are still on target for completion of the trail at the end of July at this point. CDOT permit, we're happy to report that CDOT is amiable to allow all of the seating on Main Street to come under the town's permit. They may be adding a second addendum for the west side of the St. Brain Market, since that is not part of our current incidental use permit. And then we did hear from Mr. Sullivan that he does want to lease the little portion, his ice machine is on, he's not going to move it, so he is gonna pursue that individually with CDOT. The street light inventory and recommendations is out. The consultant was here last week looking at every light in town. And, we hope to have a public survey going out here over the next few weeks with the final report or recommendation to the board by the end of February.
Hard to say street light, you don't want people getting scared, they're looking at their lights.
What do you mean?
They're looking at street lights for the street light study, not homeowners' lights.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, streetlights, okay. We have, had one meeting and we're going to continue to have a little more to better orientate ourselves to historic preservation in regard to our current code. There's quite a bit of code about it, and I think it hasn't been followed very closely in regard to building permits. So we're just gonna spend a little extra time to get better orientated to what's currently there. And if there's a way to identify, at the time of a building permit, those areas that are mentioned in the code that are supposed to have, a little local review of those before building. So, like the 300 to 500 block of Main Street, that is all supposed to be reviewed prior to exterior improvements. So we're working on how to better improve that process, and with new staff, just everybody getting on the same page. This afternoon, we did receive, we haven't been able to go through it yet, but we did receive a analysis from Brian McCann's firm with some of what he thinks are comparable prices. And so we'll be starting to dig through this, get through it the next day or two. And I did commit that I would bring back what he wants to list as the sales price to the board before we do that. His numbers are quite a bit lower than what I think the board was hoping to see on that lot. So we'll bring that to you probably your next, well, I'd like to get it out there too. We'll take a look at it and get you some information so you can think about it before your next meeting. See what else. I think that's pretty much for my report. There was quite a bit of updates on communications and community relations. I think Kim's been trying to do a really good job of getting some extra things out there recently. And I don't know if there might be questions from her report. The Safe Streets for All had an open house, had input from over 260 residents on that. So that's a really good feedback on that grant. And then combining that with CDOT recommendations and things, we should have a pretty good plan of what people think we need to do to improve safety in our community. The newsletter went out for December and tried to educate people a little bit about how their wastewater rates are determined through those 3 winter months, and reminders about keeping your sidewalk clean if we ever get snow. And just some awareness for residents went out in that. And then the finance director included her monthly sales tax report. If you had a chance to look at that, the sales tax for the month of October was up quite significantly from last year at the same time. It was actually 19.8% higher, which is not what all communities are seeing.
No.
So Cassie is on the meeting. I don't know if, oh, there it is, the local, non-local. 52% of that is still local residents. So I don't know if you have any other comments on that, Cassie, or any other observations that you want to make.
No, we did have some past payments that were received. And we do receive these often from, I would say, non-local businesses. And a lot of times they're a part of a larger audit potentially a national audit that is done on certain businesses, triggered by different audit firms. So we did benefit from that, and we do see those occasionally. So that was part of what the month increase was, but 8% higher than last year is pretty good. We do attribute some of that, of course, to the vendor fees. So we've got 2 more months left, so we'll see where we end up.
That's pretty much it. Any questions for me tonight?
I just want to be absolutely clear, when we're talking about the Apple Valley property and the easements that Brian is saying devalue property, I don't know what your notional public access agreement said, but I believe by consensus, we determined we're only talking about the river. We're not talking about any dry land. We're talking about the river itself. Now, we understand the property underlies the river. That's why we need the access agreement.
No, I
We-
think
we-
we believe it's the whole shore between the highway
Yeah.
and
whole
under
north
the
side
river.
Is what we were talking about.
That's the CDOT right of way on that side.
Their property, the property line goes up above the north
But
side.
we're only talking about the river access, the actual river itself.
That is
Were the
not how
original-
we
uh,
designed it.
You had said, I thought the high mark,
Notes,
on the
because
south.
that's what was requested.
My impression was that we were requesting the north side of the property.
Absolutely
The
not.
property north of the river. Is that yours too?
Everybody was.
No, I thought the south side.
It's to the high water mark on the south side
I think we're,
to the north. So we're not, that is not a consideration in any public access there. It's very rarely used. It's mostly riprap and it's a CDOT right away, not a lot of parking. My point in requesting the access for the public was the actual river,
the water.
the water.
The land
And the
Water.
underneath of
Because
it.
the property underlies the river.
Okay,
Whoever-
so I think what we need to do is we need to ask staff to review the meeting notes. And we may need to bring this back before the board if we're operating under different assumptions.
I'd like to see what Brandon's.
I will say that it has been written at this point. I was gonna bring that up during my report, is that we have drafted this easement, but we haven't brought it to the board yet because we were waiting on McCann to get this done, and this is literally just happened. That's why it hasn't been presented. I used the survey provided by Aaron to, just as an attachment for whatever, that is, and our part of it is the language, not the survey. And so it's whatever was on there, but I believe it's the highway side
It's the whole.
into
length.
the water
That's what we
link.
did.
Yeah. When I proposed this, I had carefully looked at the plat and I said that the easement would extend from the high water mark on the south shore across the river to the other side. The public access agreement.
Yeah, I think it's
Nobody
water.
cares. It does us no good to not protect the actual access to the river, because whoever owns that property, and you know how Colorado trespassing laws are, whoever owns that property could summarily say, you touch the bottom, I'm calling the sheriff.
That was the intent, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, the intent was
So it's not.
the river and, it's basically the river. So I think what it is like, it's the high water mark of the river on the highway side up to the property.
Right, the high water mark on the south side, up to the property line, which in parts of it is right at the creek, parts of it go up along that bank.
It's all drawn on that map.
It's all, yeah.
That's what we had in the
there.
packets. We
Yeah.
thought that's what.
What is, I'd be interested to see what Brian has put in there as a depiction of that, if there is in fact one.
I don't think he put any
No.
depiction of that, only that there is an access easement. That's,
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because
Me too.
yeah, everyone
That's
was
what I got.
under a different impression, it sounds like. So, we can take another look at that and, we'll bring something forward at your next meeting.
yeah, I mean, it's done. I mean, it's just
I
a
know,
matter of,
We'll
yeah.
bring it forward at the
Yeah.
next meeting and
Just
hopefully by
review.
then this will also be
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it doesn't extend into their property, if that's what you're asking. It's not like it covers their entire yard or anything. It's just the river is all it is.
Well, we have the river
Yeah,
and the
slight bit
north
of
side,
land.
It's
of
a
it,
little bit of land on the highway side, yeah.
the whole length.
Yeah, for the whole thing, I mean, it doesn't like go into the highway. It's just like a little sliver of land, basically.
It's the whole hillside down to it, yeah.
Yep.
All right, well, let's, can we please review either the meeting notes or the meeting recording? Where we made that decision. Okey dokey.
One question about historic preservation, you mentioned there's special review required for the 300 to 500 blocks of lane. But am I correct that for any of those properties in that area to actually be designated as a state or national, or I think locally,
Local, state, national,
but that's still voluntary?
Of course.
We still know.
of course.
So it would require the property owner to request that designation for it to actually be designated as a historic site, right?
Correct. No, it takes the property owner's permission to do so.
Anybody else? I'd like to make a request. I was glad to see, Director Mitchell's report in there. I think that's great. So thanks to her, if she's watching, for doing that. I'd like to request that we communicate, more clearly and maybe more often for a little while, the option that we all approved to have people submit, emails to be included in the packet by a certain date and time, because we did that. I haven't seen any included in the packet, and I think most people probably don't know about it because, you know, it's a change that really hasn't been publicized. So maybe if that could be included in an e-blast or two, that would be helpful, or the utility bill that may be helpful too. And then I just want to say it was, great boards and commissions appreciation party. So thanks to everybody who was able to attend that, and thanks to staff for making that happen. I think everybody felt very well appreciated, had some great food, had a great time. So it's always a highlight of the holiday season. So thanks for that. Okay. All right, so any additional legal update?
Well, my primary thunder was stolen by the discussion we just had, that, you know, it is done. I was hoping to have it on, you know, tonight to present to you all, but we were waiting on the real estate side of things to catch up. So we'll be at the next meeting. Other than that, I was at the Christmas parade last week with my in-laws. I stood next to Trustee Hamrick and
Oh,
had a great time. Finally went to main stage, which I've been wanting to do for a long time. So it's a great time.
Great, thank you. Any questions about Brandon's holiday parade experience?
Did it feel like you were walking onto a movie set?
Of course, yeah. I think it's the fourth one I've
We
been
should
to,
celebrate.
so. Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's move on to ordinances of public hearings. First up, we have the second reading and public hearing of ordinance 1177. An ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, amending Article 4 of Chapter 13 of the Lyons Municipal Code for the purpose of increasing service rates and charges for wastewater utilities serviced by the Consumer Price Index.
So this is the second reading for the wastewater fund increase in rates. There were no changes from the first reading. We went up just by the 3% CPI as required in the code.
Thank you. Any questions at all remaining? Okay, then I will open the public hearing. Anybody care to comment on this ordinance? Okay. Then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1177, an ordinance increasing the wastewater utility rates on second reading.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Next is the second reading, public hearing of ordinance 1178, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons amending 13,350, 13,470, and 18,1610, changing the source of consumer price index and removal of CPI adjustment for non-metered water service.
So again, the second reading, there weren't any recommended changes by the board. I did add, a staff recommendation. As trustee, someone would have to make the motion, I believe, if you wanted to. My recommended slight change as put in the cover letter was just to state that the current park fee is available on the town fee schedule rather than what it currently says is available at the town clerk's office. We have all of our fees on the rates and fees schedule. So I thought that would be clearer for someone to be able to find that fee.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, then I will open the public hearing on ordinance 1178. I will close the public hearing on 1178 and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1178, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending sections 13-3-50, 13-4-70, and 18-16-10 of the Lyons Municipal Code for the purposes of changing the source of the Consumer Price Index on second reading as amended. And I would like to add that the current park fee is available on the town fee schedule.
What, separate than that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or amendments?
I'd like to propose an amendment where the current park fee is available on the town fee schedule as opposed to the town clerk's office.
Yeah, is there a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Let's vote on the amendment.
That motion passes unanimously.
Yes.
Yeah, I got a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, Brian, you. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can do that, yeah.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Any other amendments or discussion? Then we'll vote on that ordinance as amended.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. Next up is first reading of ordinance 1179, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending section 7450 of the LMC regarding tree maintenance and public right of way.
Mayor, trustees, you never know what I might be speaking on, right? So, in looking at the code, working with, Cassidy and the code enforcement, it was seen that it was pretty all-encompassing or could be restrictive for any type of work in the right of way to try to trim bushes or cut branches of trees based on the reading of the code that would require a permit. It was believed the intent was really to protect a number of things. Somebody taking out complete trees, concerns that might be, safety issues, but that we could have people actually trimming the bushes, trying to keep the right of way, the alleys or tree branches that were not concerned to allow that work to be done without requiring a permit. So this code modifies that to to require a permit, except in the certain instances where we found that it would not be a concern. So, except for the cutting, trimming, or pruning of vegetation smaller than 6 inches in diameter, not falling more than 8 feet, and that will not create a hazardous situation to try to cover the unknown.
Any questions for Director Kaplan?
Yeah, question like that. How many times have we actually, as we can actually over the years, directed people to do something, to take care of something that's probably not right away? How many times is that actually been implemented?
I think we reach out with letters, plenty, or a phone call or an email. I don't know that we've seen it go, and in the past, I think when there was, more ticket, I know some of the previous code compliance, I don't know that currently we're up there issuing actual violation notices, but there were ones issued. How often? 5 times a year, just to throw out a number.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It does get used, is what I'm
a
asking.
couple
Yeah.
times a month in the summer usually, but, we do need to use it occasionally.
I know in my neighborhood, that was the impetus for us doing significant tree work and our neighbors as well. Any other questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1179 and ordinance amending Article 4 of Chapter 7 of the Lyons Municipal Code regarding maintenance of vegetation in the town's right of way.
Thank
On
you.
first reading and to schedule a public hearing and second reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any discussion?
I'll just mention, Attorney Dittman, our sponsors, things about this stuff. Where exactly, whether the town's right of way is actually a right of way that gives the town ability to go across someone's private property, or whether that property is actually owned up to the curb line by the property owners. There's a difference. The way the code is worded right now can make a difference. Attorney Dittman said he's gonna look into it, so.
Yeah, it's different in every neighborhood. In some places, our right of way goes, like in Old Town on the south side of town, our right of way almost goes up to their front step. And in other places, it's way out at the curb line. But I mean, your best way to usually know where our right of way is based on if there's electric lines and poles or sidewalks. Is a good indicator usually of where our right of way is.
Yeah, the issue I raised was if you read the code the way it's written right now, and if a property owner's actual property goes up to the curb line.
Sure,
Even though the town may have a right of way to put in, to trim trees, to widen the road, or whatever.
Yeah.
There's actually no space there for them to maintain if that's the case. And so Brandon was gonna look into it, maybe come up with some language that would cover that situation.
Yeah, the language that I was thinking is that changing that section right there and to take out basically the reference to the right of ways is that from the abutting property to the curb line or edge of the roadway, in between the property and the center line of the alley. So that way it doesn't really matter what it is.
yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
For the second reading,
If someone wants to suggest it now, we can make that amendment, but, yeah.
Yeah, if I would make that suggestion now, if you could come up with the wording for second reading, would that be okay? Or you can give me the words?
Yeah, I can give you the word right now. I'll bring it over to you if you want.
Yeah, I think there could be situations where you literally would almost have zero property that somebody would want to maintain.
Well, make sure you're aware of the alleys also.
He said
There's
There's alleys too, center line alleys.
I would offer an
We
amendment,
have had a motion and a second, correct?
you have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
To approve.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
I would propose an amendment, to change the language in the code, to in section 2 to, let me see where it goes.
Yeah, it's kind of the middle, I think, of that.
Section 2.
Yeah. I have something else to pull up. The laptop's going. The second one right there.
Within B, down the third or fourth line. Within the public.
It's right above the
way,
red.
Between the property
Oh, yeah,
line of the abutting
Yeah.
property.
To change the wording of where it refers and I guess it's at the end of the first sentence, to be between the property line and the center line of any alley. It also says, within the public right of way, between the property line of the abutting property and the curb line. Read from the abutting property to the curb line or edge of the roadway and between the property and the center line of any alley. Make that amendment.
Right, is there a second? Any discussion on that
I
amendment?
got it. Sorry.
Okay, let's vote on that amendment, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Any other amendments or discussion? All right, then we will vote on the item as amended.
And that also passes unanimously.
right, Clerk Vasquez, would you please read consent into the record?
Yes. Yes, item 1 is resolution 2024-107, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an agreement with the Community Foundation of Boulder County to establish a mental health and wellness field of interest fund. Item 2 is resolution 2024-108, resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the First Amendment to the construction agreement with TFW Construction LLC for the PRV4 upgrades, project 24-PRV4-01, rebid number 1. Item 3 is resolution 2024-109, resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, adopting the 2025 Town of Lyons fee schedule. Item 4 is the December 2nd, 2024 regular Board of Trustees meeting minutes. And item 5 are the December accounts payable.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve consent?
So,
Is there a second?
second.
Anything anyone would like to remove?
Thanks. I'd like to remove item 3, the fee schedule.
I'd like to remove item 1.
Anyone else? All right, let's vote on consent as amended.
And that passes unanimously.
All right, let me ask you, do you imagine your item taking a while?
This is it's a housekeeping.
Okay, with your permission, Trustee Browning.
Yeah, it should have.
Okay,
Last
go ahead.
So the only question I have is certainly about, this is housekeeping or bookkeeping, as it were. So we say that the town will make an initial contribution of $25,000.
A
On
minimum.
or before February 2025. Throughout 2025, the marijuana tax will continue to accrue.
Mhm.
Will that be used to pay back the initial 25K that we put into the fund?
Mhm.
Because otherwise, it's sort of like a double dip. We paid 25.
Mhm. So, Director Eystone, you want to reply to how you plan to do that if it passes?
So the way that this is going to work is it's going to be based off the prior year's collections. So it's going to be, and we won't know those collections, of course, until January of the following year. So every year we would do the February contribution. It is budgeted, so essentially it just comes from fund balance. It's like anything else. There's no specific set bank account sitting there for the marijuana tax. It's just a budgeted line item with a lump sum contribution. And essentially it if you're thinking of it that way, it does replenish itself, but it is really based off of the prior year's revenue collections. Does that help?
Yeah, and I assume the prior year being 2024, we have well in excess of 25K. Right.
At this time, there is, I think, I'd have to go back and look at my sales tax report. We have 2 more months left, but at this time we have collected about 110,000. So 25% of that is about 25,000. So.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'll move resolution 2024-107, resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an agreement with the Community Foundation of Boulder County to establish a mental health and wellness field of interest fund.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Trustee Browning?
There are a number of things in the fee schedule and questions about, should we go through them one by one or?
Let's go through them one by one. Do we have, Director Cosgrove available?
Yeah, he said he would be available. I was
Okay.
gonna let him know that already.
Yeah.
But Director Eystone has talked with everyone as well.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, because a couple of these concern parks.
Yeah.
The first item I had was something that, the citizen brought to my attention that last summer, they wanted to reserve a tennis court. There's an online reservation option for doing that. And didn't get it done without paying a $10 fee. And this resident's, opinion was that in-town residents who pay taxes shouldn't have to pay the $10 to do an online reservation of a tennis court. And so she contacted me about it. I looked at the fee schedule that existed for this past year, and there was no such fee. And further inquiry indicated that this fee had been being charged for some time without being on the schedule. And now I see it shows up on the schedule for this year. And I just think on some of these things, and a few others that I'll get to as well, that we're getting to the point of like nickel diming town residents for things that ought to be included in town services, like an online reservation at a tennis court. I don't see why that should cost a tax-paying town residents $10. And so.
Should we,
I can reply.
Yeah, so.
Sure, I'll reply. I talked with Director Cosgrove earlier, so until he joins us. So it's not a requirement that, you know, you pay the fee. It's a first come, first serve like all our parks. All this is if you want to reserve it for yourself outside of town recreation programs like the pickleballers who have that. You pay $10 if you want to reserve it, no different than a picnic table at Laverne Johnson Park. So it's only if you want to reserve it. You're welcome to use it at no cost at all. But that's how that system works. It doesn't require you to pay it.
Trustee Jackson?
So just to be clear, the pickleball players do not pay a
No.
$10 fee.
They do not, because they coordinate that with our recreation program.
Because it's open to everybody,
It's open to everything.
right? It's not like a private reservation.
Yeah.
Can I ask, why you settled on the $10 fee?
That's what has always been charged apparently, but it's never shown up on the fee schedule.
How many years has it been charged?
I think a long time, before my time, yeah,
Okay, wow, really?
yeah.
Okay.
If I like to try to delete some of these fees, should I move to do that one by one or wait till the end? But I guess one by one would be simpler. I move that we delete the $10 tennis court reservation fee.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Just quick discussion. I just think that that's probably unnecessary. It is kind of like the picnic table reservation
Wait,
fee, but
I'm sorry,
No, there's not.
I'm sorry, excuse me, there's not a motion
Yes.
yet
Oh, I
to,
For the overall
for
agenda.
the
Oh, yeah,
overall
that's true.
agenda item.
that's true.
So let's
All
let's do this, let's keep a list of your proposed motions, and then after there's a motion in a second, then we'll entertain the amendments, but let's go through your list first.
Okay, another which is kind of a question. There's a single stop fee that's being raised from $50 to $135. If you want to put in a new water heater or a dishwasher or that type of thing. We told our water heater needs to be replaced pretty soon. So that caught my eye. But there's also something that seemed a little bit inconsistent. On that part of it, it said like a reinspection of that was $70, but then down on another page, it was like a reinspection of any miscellaneous electrical fee was another $135, and I wanted to see if those were consistent. Yes, it's reinspection fee on any miscellaneous electric fee. Oh, it does say $70. I misread that. No, it says 135 under miscellaneous fees, so I wanted to see if it was like separate for appliances or what. It seems to be different numbers.
You can do a one for appliance, a big water heater, but.
Yes, it's single stop fees, furnace, air conditioner, water heater, sprinkler system, siding, window replacement, $135. So if you're gonna get a new water heater, you've got to pay $135 for an inspection fee. And then it says on that same line, it says reinspection for any of the above $170, and then down below under miscellaneous fees, it says reinspection of any miscellaneous electrical fees, $135.
Yeah. just to be clear, it wouldn't be dishwashers or washing machines or dryers, it's just those things that are listed.
This would be for a specific electrical inspection if they come back.
Okay.
Do you wanna explain why?
Yes, well, I was gonna say, the main thing we wanted to look at was anytime the inspector has to go out with the way the rate structure is now, especially for our contracted, but that's about what it costs for them to come out and do an inspection. So if we're trying to cover that cost, we could potentially change it if we did get somebody in-house and we understood what it was, but even if it's a small item, if they have to go make a visit,
They
right,
charge.
it's gonna be some, at least an hourly cost is what we were looking at. So it was a one-stop permit if somebody applies for a water heater installation. They do have to have that inspected. And so the minimum now is 135. If they call in for an inspection, and sometimes, a number of times contractors wanna just get it done and they say, okay, come on in for the inspection, and they set it up ahead of time. And the inspector goes in and nothing's ready for him to inspect. And so he has to go out for a re-inspection. So we were charging a second fee, mostly trying to get through to the contractors that they can't just set up a weekly schedule, start calling somebody to come in if they're not ready for them, because they could have someone come in just for that one inspection and there's nothing to do.
Basically, the appliances listed here is $70 re-inspection fee, and it actually costs the town $135 for somebody to come in and look at a new water heater, is that right?
Right.
Same thing for a window, if a hailstone hits my window and I replace my window, it's gonna cost me whatever the window costs plus $135.
Correct.
Trustee Dottie?
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up because I didn't even realize that there was a fee for installing a furnace or air conditioner or water heater.
You gotta
So-
make yours computer.
Sure, so I just want to clarify then, so is this something that the contractor would take care of, and you said it's only for electrical, is that right?
Anything you're getting a building permit for. So you
Oh, I
have
see, a
to
building
go
permit is
through-
required for the installation, so even if it's a replacement of a furnace
It's
or,
called a single stop.
okay, so I've never heard of a single stop before, so I'm saying this out loud publicly
Yeah.
so that everybody else who's confused by the single stop
Yeah.
is clear on this, that's why
A
I'm just
single stop
clarifying.
is something that an inspector can go out and approve right there.
So whenever we get one of these appliances replaced,
You
we
come
need to apply for a permit.
Usually your contractor will do that.
The
for you.
contractor will do that for us.
And it's
And
kind
build
of
it
built into the
They
price.
So
build
it will be
into
built
it.
into the price will be this $135
Yeah.
for the town of Lyons.
In City of Aurora is the exact same thing, and I had my
Yeah.
furnace and water heater done at the same time. One inspector did both out and out about the same price.
And so it would be $135 for each appliance, like if you were
No,
doing
That's
that
per-
No,
well,
what is that?
per visit, okay, okay. So it's best to get them replaced at the same time.
Go ahead.
Okay, and these are comparable rates to like any other,
Well, the fee schedules have to be based on your
Cost-based
actual
rates,
rate.
yeah.
They're supposed
Okay.
to be based on the
Okay.
actual cost, and that
Okay.
is what it is, as long as we
Okay.
have an outside contractor.
No, we are not making money.
no, I
We're not
get
allowed-
that.
We cannot
I'm
allow
just,
to enter.
obviously, I've never had to replace
So if
these
we-
personally, so
yeah.
I'm just like,
If
educating
we're
myself
able
on
to
others.
bring this in-house, we'll probably be able to bring it significantly lower.
Okay.
Trustee Lowe?
I can't imagine how many people in town are in violation of having some of these replacement appliances
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
inspected.
Absolutely.
I never did.
Mm-mm.
You're not inspected, but pulling a building.
Statute of limitations, I'm not.
Where's Sergeant Sears when you need him?
Especially water heaters, I mean, they're kind of like a bomb on their own, so
Yeah,
you wanna
right.
make
If
sure
they're
they're
on gas, for sure.
I mean, if you have a third party do it, it's pretty standard. I mean,
It is.
yeah, I mean, at least for me it was, so.
Okay, are we good with the single, trustee
So,
Bellman, I'm
his-
sorry.
And it, even if you have one window replaced, you have to get inspection?
We're supposed to get a building permit, right? We're talking about it as an inspection. You're supposed to apply for a permit. Usually the permit is based on the valuation and can be hundreds of dollars, if not thousands for some projects. So the small single ones, we didn't say, this is based on your water heater is $700. Your labor is $300, so we're gonna take 10% of that, which is what all the other fees are. This was trying to give a lower fee than what it would be based on just the valuation, since it's a simple, someone just coming out to inspect, they're not doing a lot of work. But yes, officially, I'd have to go back through the code. I don't think there's a code. There might be something that says if there's more than a certain number of windows. But I'd have to see, it's based on what's listed in the actual International Building Code of what requires a permit. So anything in the International Building Code, Plumbing Code, Electric Code, Mechanical that requires a permit, we're following that international standard.
Okay, so one more. What about if someone gets an electric, EV charger into their home? Do they need
Definitely not.
inspection?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's again, you're gonna need an electrician to come out and verify that.
Yeah,
It's
and
installed correctly.
any contractor, any reputable contractor will know which permits are required.
The things that are really dangerous to you and your neighbors. most of
To get 240, hook up, so they always require.
And, people, if there are ever any questions, I think the direction for folks listening is just call town hall and ask.
Yeah. IBC.
But any electrician or plumber, they know which ones requires permits, which ones
Well,
don't.
they know that if they don't do it right, they could lose
Their
their
license.
license.
Yeah.
Having had every appliance in my home replaced at this point, I can tell you which ones do, which ones don't.
You're right, we do get a number of them. Water heaters, I don't know, right, people probably judge if they broke one window, I don't know how many people would apply for.
Yeah, probably not.
But there are certain windows that, like, if they're less than 18 inches from the ground, they're supposed to be special
Tempered glass.
types of tempered glass, so they check that sort of thing as a safety hazard. For little children.
Are you satisfied with this one, Mark?
Oh, please tell me. You do have a couple of windows that need to be replaced. Maybe we can make them last a little longer.
All right, what's next on
The
your
next
list?
question is about the defensible space fee. Is that just anticipating that we may have a WI code at some point that?
Correct. If we
the
wanted
town
to
might
do
get
it,
involved, if we're not even sure we're gonna have one, and we're not even sure if we have one yet, we would do the inspections, basically.
correct, so that's why Cassie did try to add in the notes. That one, oh, did the notes show up? Yeah. That would be if we put that into place. Just in looking, I saw Boulder has one at $200 for everything they do.
Just want to make clear that that wasn't something that was basically applicable yet. And correct, not be, just, we're working on a WI code draft. Let's see, there was a change for the field rental fee for youth sports teams. Is this something that's gonna considerably increase the cost for parents and children participating in sports, actually, like the baseball and softball team practices or soccer team practices, we're gonna charge them?
This has always been in place as well.
It just went up.
It just went up because the cost of the people doing the work to prep them goes up every year.
Let's see, then under the wastewater fees, which.
Oh, that's page 9.
Wastewater rates, the residential rates went up slightly, that's, I guess, because of the increase that we did, but the commercial rates are going down slightly. Why the difference there? Both the base rate and the.
Something's wrong, that should match the ordinance, if it doesn't, one of us put something in wrong, I'm gonna pull up the ordinance that it has it.
Oh, you know what, those may have been reversed, looking at it.
Yeah, I think it's someone.
It is, commercial should be 24.45 going to 25.20.
They're,
Cassie shaking her.
they're flip-flopped here.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Director Eyestone's nodding.
So please make that amendment. please.
Well, I think that's a.
That's an errata.
Yeah, we don't need a,
Okay, I just need that, just.
it's an error.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, there's the, fee for, paying $2 a month to get a paper, utility bill.
Yeah.
There'll be probably more discussion on this. I personally have a problem with that. I like getting paper bills. They're easier to refer to. I don't forget to pay them as easily as I do with email bills, and then very importantly to me, there are a number of people in town who do not readily use email or have access to computers, and it's not just income based either. Some of them are just old people who don't use computers that much. I guess I'm part of the category. But I just wonder if there's not some interim step to do this besides making it mandatory and, you know, maybe do what I've seen with some credit card companies do, which is offer people, an incentive to go to online billing, give them a $25 one-time credit or something like that, instead of making it mandatory. Because I just think this is gonna probably generate more resentment from, utility customers than the money may be worth.
All right, so those were your reasons for pulling the fee schedule.
Yep.
What I think that, and you may have more, others may have more, to discuss, but I think what we should do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Jentman, is have a motion and a second on this item, and then we can have more discussion about each item.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, the question is whether you want to do them all together or separately. I think probably separately, given the nature of these.
Separate amendments, yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
and, but there may be other fees that people have questions about, so.
Yeah, yes, what I would recommend is we do it, each one, have a vote on that one, then move on to the next one. So that way you're not having like an amendment to the second
I think
problem.
I'm just gonna have two.
Okay,
Okay, and I actually have some questions before we get into amendments, so, so can I, have a motion to approve this item so that we can have more discussion?
I move to approve this item, fee
2020.
schedule, yes.
Thank you. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna start with a couple questions. So the court reservation fee of $10, about how many reservations do you think we get a year?
Director Cosgrove told me that over the last year, we had, I think the revenue was $220
Okay,
for court reservations. So that'd be 22 reservations.
okay. And is that all automated? But like
It's all done online with our reservation
Okay.
system, yes.
Okay. And how many people are now getting paper electric bills?
Almost, what was the number? We did that.
was over 500.
It's a lot, and the number, I don't know if, Aaron, you want to explain it more, but we did an actual of what does it cost to produce the bill, and it is $2 per household per month.
Well, your
produce-
postage alone is 62 cents.
And, so that's an actual cost based on staff time to prepare it and, the cost of the mailing. And there was one more item you added in there, Aaron. But it came out to like, $198 per household.
Okay, so that's $12,000 a year
Oh,
to send out electric bills? If it's
no more
more
than that, 24,000, $2 a month,
500 times 2 is 1,000.
Right.
12 is 12.
2,000 a month to send them out.
What, 2 times 500 is 1,000.
1,000.
So that's,
Where are you getting 500? Oh, there's
That's
more
what
than 500.
Dolores is saying, right?
No, it's more like 80% of our community still gets paper bills.
Is it that high?
We are way above
It's
the
more
average.
fun.
Yeah,
so then it's more than 500?
Yes,
Okay,
we did that number somewhere along the way. It was between 70 and 80% still get paper bills.
okay.
Even when we tried to, that we haven't offered a monetary incentive, but you know, we tried to encourage why it's important from a sustainability perspective, and it would save, you know, over 8 hours, probably 16 hours a month of staff time.
I think most CAMA members have moved to like an opt-in program.
Opt-in, that's what
That
we're
you can only,
suggesting.
yeah, you can only get a paper bill if you ask for it.
That's what we're suggesting
Yeah.
here is an opt-in program.
Yeah, I think we had to talk about that fairly recently and pretty much everybody has moved that direction.
And you checked with our neighbors, Andrew, Aaron, did both
For-
Longmont and Boulder did that.
Well, we were looking, I know,
There,
like the
Excel.
trash company's done it right now. I don't know that
Excel definitely has.
long, I'd have to double check.
Black Hills Energy has, but
So are you suggesting that if someone wants to continue to get a paper bill, they could opt in
Yes.
by,
Yes,
by emailing, or
sure, making a request for that, we'd put a note on their file.
how would those who don't have access to computers, email, opt in?
Call.
Call.
Telephone?
We would just opt in, yeah. Most of those folks come in every month. You know, a lot of people just walk in their utility bill because they want to communicate with the staff and ask questions about their bills. So, we have our regular folks that I think you'll still have, I don't think you'll have more than maybe, if it's an opt-in, maybe 40 people that will want that.
You don't want paper bills?
Yeah.
Like 41.
No, I mean, no, but based on those who, you know, bring in their utility bill and.
And I have a hybrid idea that I'll bring up.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we just clarify the cost of this then? So this is, you think it's costing us $1,000 a month if there's 500
What's more
paper
than,
copies?
who's more
What did
than
we land on?
You
for
just said it
cost?
was $2 per.
But I think it's more than 500.
But you think it's more
households.
than-
I think
but
it's
So
more
it's
like.
minimum $12,000 is what it's costing.
So it's
A year.
12,000, it's 500, if it's 1,000,
Right.
then it's 24,000.
Okay. So it's minimum 12,000 is the cost for doing the paper.
We have a big machine, we operate the,
Yeah,
the police.
I've seen them.
We
I've
lease it.
seen the, yeah.
The guys out here almost once quarter probably.
Yeah.
It's really the opportunity cost. What other better things can they be doing with their time versus
Yeah.
stuff and envelopes?
Mhm.
Trustee Lowell, did you have something else you wanted?
Yeah, you're talking
to
a Luddite here. I'm like Mark. I like Mark.
discuss? Do we have anything besides the paper bill we'd like to discuss?
No.
Okay.
Well, the single stop fee.
And you'd like.
I'd like to just discuss how we're educating the public around that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you're not interested in changing something about it?
If that's the going rate, that's the going rate, but I do think we need to educate the community about it.
I'm gonna look it through the IBC and maybe be there and help to find it and see if we could figure out a way where every window that gets broken doesn't have to be permitted. I get the tempered glass and
Yeah.
and that type of thing. I want to see if we can, if that's something we need to amend the IBC about. I'm gonna see if we can figure out a way to do that.
Okay, so what I have on this list that I've been keeping in terms of, items that there may be, the items that I'm hearing, there may be amendments for, are the tennis court reservations and the, $2 paper bill. Is that correct? Does anybody have any other issues they'd like to bring up related to this?
Do you want to remove defensible space until that happens? If we're gonna be bringing back some of these others?
No, we could amend, depending on what we do with the WI code, we could amend that.
We can amend the fee
Yep.
schedule.
I think it's okay,
Yeah.
then it's not gonna have any effect, but
Okay,
we can look at what, that's one of the big things to look at with the WI code is what does the town have to do to enforce it? How much is that gonna cost? And that's, we can make it broader, narrow, and retroactive or not, and so I think that will probably need to be relooked at when we get to that point. I don't have anything to propose on it now.
Okay. Okay, trustee Browning, would you like to suggest an amendment?
Yes, the first thing I would suggest is that we delete the $10 tennis court reservation fee.
Is there a second? Maybe there's a motion and a second.
My discussion, I just think it doesn't raise that much revenue, and I think it's one of those that's. But the service the town should provide, it doesn't really require much staff time when it's an online thing, and it annoys residents, and I don't think it's necessary.
Can I ask, to change the software to eliminate that fee, but still allow people to make a reservation? How much time and effort would that take?
so we won't be able to discern in town, out of town, anything like that. So why have a reservation system? Why even?
Well,
Because to me, if I
I
want to
think-
reserve
I
that
think you can
time,
put it
I'm
as-
willing to pay for that.
no fee, okay.
Otherwise, it's just go to the court.
Well, that's
Because
not the
people
question
have-
now.
Because people have people visiting from out of town and they wanna be able.
So then if someone from Longmont needs overflow space, they can come over here and reserve our court all they want for lessons. That does, we do have an out-of-town coach who comes here to teach lessons.
Does he pay? He pays the $10?
Apparently,
See, my understanding was, I'm not gonna get off topic here, but my understanding was that any use of our parks or a business that makes money requires some sort of a fee. I think we had, the discussion that we got into some years ago was about somebody teaching fly fishing courses at
that
Royal
happened
Johnson
too.
Park to a half a dozen people and making money off
Yeah.
it. So they would require a permit for use of our park space. So when you mentioned the Longmont tennis guy, I'm wondering, does he just pay the $10?
I
and
would guess
gets-
so. Maybe that's the income that we received. But he was doing quite a few there for a while.
So the question was,
Just,
to change the
Delete
software
the fee.
system and delete the fee.
I don't
how
think
much-
that will be significant. That's probably just a phone call or two to whoever with, between our director and the software. She probably changes it regularly.
Try to set it at 0, I assume.
Yeah. I don't think that would be a big cost.
I'll hear what others have to say, but I have anything interesting, Emma.
Yeah, I'm fine removing the fee. I think it's good to have a reservation, so if somebody really wants to plan their schedule around locking up a tennis court. Cause I mean, there's a lot of folks playing basketball and or pickleball, so if you wanna lock it in, it'd be nice to keep the reservation and not charge the fee.
So we'll need to educate like our young youth on reserving it for basketball.
Yeah, I mean, it would promote higher utilization, I would think.
But if the court is empty, anybody can still. just
Oh,
walk
sure,
in
yeah,
and
first
use
come,
it.
first served then, but if you have a reservation, it preempts the first come, first served.
How do we enforce that?
I was just gonna say.
Well, I
Play
think
basketball and you can just.
we've
say, I
done
have
this-
They come in and say, I've reserved the
Yeah,
court.
it's easy as that.
That's what they
just tell
say,
them.
and most kids are good about it.
Yeah.
But that's usually who gets bumped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trustee Darcy?
$220 a year, so.
I know, it's really not for the revenue. I mean, I guess where I'm hesitant is, you know, out of towners coming in and then the local residents complaining that they can't use the tennis court that's being reserved by people from out of town when their tax dollars are paying for this tennis court. I mean, that's
But they
really
should
where-
have a permit. I'm sorry.
You have a permit, yeah.
because the reservation system is available to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's the fly fishing, sorry.
Okay, okay. Anything else you'd like?
I'm
add
happy to
that?
waive the fee. I'm just concerned about it being available to.
You won't be able to discern out of town
Right.
anytime.
We're not allowed to, if it's
No.
federal
Yeah.
funds.
So
you
if
can't
someone wants to
discriminate.
come in and reserve it
Can't do anything.
every day in the weekend,
They can do that.
they can do that right now and pay $100 for the year and have it every Saturday at that time.
Okay, trustee Law?
Oh, yeah, but that raises the question, I think you just brought it up, because these parks were built with federal funds, we're obligated to allow non-residents to use them.
Correct.
Facility, so long as the fee that is charged is compatible with other similar federally funded parks.
We can charge whatever you want, so long as we're charging everyone the same.
The same, right, but we can't charge somebody $300 to rent the court because
We could.
If you set your
It's the
fee
same.
schedule like that, you
But we would
could.
have to charge everybody right
I
now.
mean, I guess that's
my
true,
only-
if
my
it
only
costs
point
that
is,
much, yeah.
Having been involved in this issue,
Mhm.
it can only be, it has to be compatible with other
And based on
other
actual
towns'
costs.
facilities.
I don't think that's correct, it needs to be cost based, and
Cost.
so if it,
Well, we'll argue that all day, but anyway, so I'm in favor of waiving the $10 fee.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't care.
I'll be voting through on that.
I think we should keep the fee. I think, and since it's not being enforced, I don't think it really matters, but I think anybody could You know, they could just go for free and say, well, I'm gonna reserve the court. And then,
Red Edge,
The red edge.
next park next to me.
It's, and I keep trying to press this, and it's not.
For way to escape them.
I'm so sorry. All right, trustee Browning?
Oh, I'm in favor of waiving it.
All right, and I'm in favor of keeping the fee. So, we will vote on that amendment.
So the amendment is to.
The amendment is to, remove the
Waive the $10 fee.
The green line.
And that
5-2.
passes 5-2.
Okay. All right, and so, is there an amendment, regarding the $2 fee for paper or electric bills?
You said you had a suggestion to make, so.
I do, but I think, do we need, a motion or a second?
You already have it for the.
You already have the whole thing, so you're good.
Yeah, so, I'm always in favor of more carrots than sticks. When it comes to changing people's behavior. And so what I would like to propose the board consider, and I'd love staff feedback on it, is, kind of a timed carrot of a $5 statement credit that's offered over the next few months for people who receive paper bills to move to online billing. And then say after 60 days or after 90 days, you'll be charged $2 a month for paper bills. Give people the option to opt in and give them an incentive to opt in.
How many ratepayers are there? 1,000.
91 or something.
Yeah. The $5,000 it could cost.
For how many months?
right, cause it's
Once.
5,000 a month. Okay,
Once.
5,000.
You get a 1 month $5 statement
Okay.
credit.
So total cost is $5,000 for that operation,
Yeah.
Well, if
depending on
there's,
how many.
depending on how many people are, it's between 500 and 800 people receiving paper bills. So.
Okay.
And then I think, the money saved over the long run by not sending out those bills for $2, and that's just a structure, so totally open to.
You think $5 is enough? Incentivize people?
That's $5,000 possibly,
No, but,
No, it's not.
no,
2,500
For an
minimum.
individual. To incentivize an individual.
Yeah, if they don't have a strong reason for keeping paper, if they just, for example, haven't gotten around to it yet, it might be enough.
I think.
And at the same time, are we educating them that actually as of this date, it would be a $2 fee?
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I would say give them 90 days.
Okay, okay, but we're not giving them a $5 credit for 90 days, like.
No, just a one-time. $5
One time, but you have 90 days to make the switch.
What fund pays for that?
Yeah,
Electric fund?
Well, that's why I said I would love staff input on this.
I'm just thinking that's when we have to figure out what pays
Well, it does
Dollar.
benefit the electrical fund because you're trying to move people.
the water,
You're paying
sewer,
for-
all of them. So
Oh, it's
you
for
take
all
it-
of them, yeah, so actually you split it between the enterprises. Which would be a nightmare, but.
Because it's two different line items. You've got, right, the utility court versus the electric fund. The $2,500 would have to come out of the electric fund, the initial
It'd be
carrot.
water and
Well, it's-
wastewater.
it'd be
The
split
utility
between
bill
the
has all
enterprises.
three of those.
Right,
in
and
it.
then going water off.
Or
Four,
two
I
of
guess,
them. And stormwater too. We could split it, the 5,000.
I mean, you could pay with the general fund, the amount's low enough where it's not gonna cause any Tabor issues, so you could do it.
But it's this fund paying for these costs every month, so it should be close.
Yeah.
to be clear, if somebody does nothing, they stay as they are.
They stay as they are, and then after 90 days, they start getting charged the $2 a month.
Yeah. Mhm.
They get, how much?
90 days.
They get $2 a month.
If they don't opt in to electronic only,
Yes.
then after 90 days, they will start getting charged the $2 a month fee
Gotcha.
for paper.
Mhm.
What if we also added the caveat, unless you are a low income and request it?
Yeah, unless you're income restricted.
No.
And I had a question.
Oh, that's
about-
already-
Yeah.
We have that, you have that guideline?
We do, it's
Yeah.
150% of HUD's
Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, they still call it poverty guidelines, which I hate, but that's what it's called. So we just got our new rates for January,
Okay,
household income rates.
okay.
Their general support of that idea?
I like it. I like the carrot approach as opposed to the stick. I appreciate you searching for that kind of solution.
It's small, it's $5 carrot.
I'm not getting I'm already digital, I'm not even getting a $5 credit.
Not getting any.
What about the
carrots.
people who already made the switch?
Well,
Many moons
it's
ago.
always, you know, sometimes you pay the price for doing the right thing.
I guess so.
Trustee Hamrick, what do you
It's
think?
just, if we're really,
I'm supportive of charging the $2 and how we get there is the details. I just think it comes back to anywhere we can save staff time to focus on more important things, we should be doing.
it is just what people do now. I mean, it's
And
sustainable.
every bill I have it set up for auto pay, because
Yeah.
it's not gonna get paid unless it goes to auto pay.
That's true.
So.
Trustee Dottie?
Yeah, I say, definitely go with the carrot approach, but I definitely feel like if we can save $12,000 by incentivizing residents to switch to digital, which is really the way most bills, I'm gonna say like, all of my bills are digital. I don't think I received one paper bill.
I don't
I
know.
think they're all digital and they're all linked to my credit card and it's just all automatic. And I appreciate that there's a, a waiver for the, how did you call it?
Waiver for
Low income.
their
Low income.
low income,
Thank you.
if they request it.
Right, so I think again, it's educated people.
Qualified.
I think letting people know that if they are low income, that they can apply for that waiver. And also letting people know that by, 3 months later, 90 days later, then this is the fee they're going to have to pay. I think that gives them ample time to make the switch. But for this to be costing taxpayers $12,000 minimum
Yeah.
a year, I think that's totally, viable. Like, I just think
We
that,
have to remember, this isn't taxpayers, this is,
right, electric fund,
this is
ratepayers,
Ratepayers.
ratepayers, but still, it's $12,000. It feels astronomical when you do the math.
$120,000 over 10 years.
For sure.
Yeah.
Which we might be able to underground an electric line later on. I mean, I don't know, what could you do with that money?
Not very big one.
Trustee Lowe?
Yeah, I'd like to do away with the $2 fee. I appreciate your initiative. I think it's a good proposal, but I wonder where, I think it's all part of doing business with the town. I don't like nickel and diming people. So.
Mayor Pro Tem?
That's actually where I stand on this. I would rather we not add that fee.
Trustee Browning?
I agree with trustee Lowell, thinking I could set it up as an opt-out, it doesn't cost you anything, anybody wants to get opt out, you can do it that way. There's some more people who get effect on the bill, but I'm not in favor of basically requiring everybody, and I don't think necessarily the low income exception is broad enough, because I think there may be some people who don't qualify for low income status, use computers and email.
Fair number of seniors.
Yeah.
Trustee Delman?
I'm in favor of keeping the $2. I like getting the paper billing, but with my other bills that I do online, I just print them out and that's easy enough.
Okay. So you want to keep the $2 fee?
$2 fee, yeah.
Okay. So right now, we have 2 trustees who would like to keep the $2 fee the way it's proposed.
Four.
I
Right
have
now I
that
have-
trustee Lowell, trustee Williams, and trustee Browning are not in favor of
And the others are.
Trustee Hamrick, trustee Daddy, and trustee Delman are. I didn't land who you were yet.
Well, I would like to do the,
Oh, right.
the hybrid
So-
approach.
The motion.
So I guess you have.
So which trustee Daddy would as well.
Yeah.
So,
That's what
I
we're.
would be in favor of that as
Yes.
well. As long as we keep the $2 after 59 days.
So,
And I'm okay with that.
you're okay with that? Okay. Okay.
You could, if you want to add to the qualifications of, other than income qualified, if that makes you others feel better, if you want to say seniors or something.
You know, anyone, or maybe someone,
Medicare eligible.
maybe to someone who just advises that they don't have the technology or the ability to do it. Someone who doesn't do online billing, basis, bills by check, there are still such people.
Oh, no, my husband's one of those, but he
Yeah.
paid the $2 to get it. He can afford it too, so it's different.
We should at least add anybody
You
that
choose to
basically
do that.
So you're saying,
certifies to the town that they're unable to do the electronic billing.
well, what we're gonna get then is a bunch of people calling up and saying, I don't wanna pay that $2.
Yeah.
Do I have to pay that $2? I don't wanna pay that $2. So I think we have to have some objective criteria.
Over 70.
And we should be looking this as more like the utility board than we are
What's
the
best for
general
utility?
ones, yeah.
You could probably do seniors and there wouldn't be that many that would do it, but I would think that would capture most of the people that I know.
I understand what you're saying.
Is it over 65, over 70?
I think that's kind of,
65.
I think it's a choice.
65 is where the senior discounts kick in from experience.
You have your 4 to 3 if you want to move forward, unless someone wants to suggest something else.
So is there no formal amendment on this?
Not yet.
No, we haven't.
There hasn't been an amendment.
I have,
Yeah, we have an amendment on this.
No.
No, we don't, not for this.
Not for this.
We have amendment for the tennis courts, which passed.
But this
Yeah.
was just the discussion prior to
Yeah.
making an amendment.
So I think first thing we're gonna do is get an amendment, let's see.
Okay, let me get this open here. Okay,
Get
so
something
I
if they want.
would move to amend the item under miscellaneous utility charges, paper bill fee. I would like to change the proposed fee of $2 to state that there will be a one-time $5 statement credit for moving to electronic statements. And after 90 days, people will be charged $2 to receive, $2 per month to receive the paper bill. With an exception for folks who are low income. Is there a second?
One second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, I'll call for the vote on that amendment.
it passes 4 to 3.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other amendments to the fee schedule? All right, let's vote on the fee schedule as amended.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay, it is now my great pleasure to appoint Chelsea Lees to the Ecology Advisory Board. So thank you for sitting through the meeting.
It was
That's
interesting.
And thanks for being willing to serve on the EAB. I know, it'll be great.
Thank you, I'm excited.
There's no meeting in December, so.
So you're off.
It only took me 6 or 7 years and now I'm up here.
Yeah, so be careful, and Steph will be in touch with you with all the
Yeah,
details.
I'll send you a-
Awesome, thank you, Chelsea. Okay, so, how do we, it's 8:30, we wanna move on to general business, or do we wanna take a short break? Anybody besides trustee Lowell have an opinion? Okay, let's move forward. If you, as usual, if anybody needs to take a break, just feel free to get up and do so. Okay, so first on general business. Discussion direction to staff on the Vasquez Court hydrant flow. My impression is there's not really any direction to give at the moment on that item, but if somebody feels differently, please speak up. Trustee
I
Brown,
don't, it's any direction to give Edith is. I appreciate the historical research that the hydroflow really hasn't changed appreciably for many, many years and, but having looked through those, subdivision documents, two sets of engineers signed off on the water flows and the adequacy at the time that they were built. And the board accepted those improvements, and I don't think when a board accepts, subdivision improvements based on engineers' recommendations at the time, that the town is making any kind of a guarantee that if International Fire Code changes 20 years from now, that the town is somehow gonna go back and retrofit the existing improvements. I think that's kind of a risk anybody takes, that codes can change over time. So I don't believe the town has any obligation to change this. And certainly spending that much money to do it is beyond our means at the moment. So I think I'm unfortunate that somebody did the whole issue with their house, but I don't think that's, it really wasn't change the town made, anything the town did wrong with it. I think the close of that, but it was really just a change in the standards under the fire code, and that's not something we can always fix.
I'm in agreement with that. And I did take a fast look, and it looks to me like, depending on where you are, you can put a cistern in for anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000. Average cost is $5,000. And I think they go back to the fire department at that point and say, well, what if we do that? You know, I certainly don't see it as our responsibility.
Anyone else?
I agree with both Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Browning. We honestly don't have the funds to invest in either option. And I think that this falls on the homeowner in that case to invest in a cistern for their property, if that's what if they're needing to meet those requirements.
And I think the question, I'm not sure there was a decision point to be made on this tonight. And it wasn't, noticed that way. So I think the discussion direction would be, you know, do we want more information? Do we want more options? And they try to tell me if I'm wrong. if
No,
you were
that's,
expecting
we just
something
wanted to make
different.
you aware of it, and if there were strong feelings on the board to pursue either of these options.
I think, I mean, what I would like to do is consider this in the landscape of all of the other infrastructure things we need to talk about, which we'll do hopefully at our, board retreat. So I'm not willing to say yay or nay on this tonight. Trustee Hammer?
I was just gonna say, not tonight, but have a further discussion as we dive into the IGA to understand what are the reasons behind this, because it's, you know, but blue line, whatever. Just so we have a better understanding, are there other situations around town that are similar, just to understand what the landscape looks like as far as infrastructure.
All right, great. Then, let's move on to discussion direction to staff on the box culvert system. I thank you for bringing this forward. I wonder what we would have done in 2020 if we had known about it then. But I think the direction is to continue to get proposals with information.
Well, and I'd like to revisit the stormwater replacement plan, so we get the bigger picture and how does that fit into that picture? Like, I feel like that's something I need to go back to.
Maybe a future workshop.
So do you want something like that before we bring the actual RFP for a contract? So we'd be bringing a resolution for a contract to have this work done at the next meeting. And that, I just wanted to make sure it was okay if we brought the contract after we review, hopefully, 3 proposals.
When you approve, what are you saying, when you approve which contractor to go with for the RFP? The structural engineer to tell us the conditions and the recommendations?
Or do I need to wait until after we have?
No, I
more
think you want to
discussion?
hear what that
Yeah,
is.
no, we need to hear.
And bring it
Yeah,
forward
it's
with
a
our
safety issue.
recommendation, and then include the portion of the stormwater master plan that addresses this?
Yeah.
Okay. Or, it's a big document,
Yeah.
235.
And how far back does it date?
The master plan,
16,
we did it in.
2017, I think.
right, it was done, and it was probably finished and signed off in 17, it was.
So for the direction on this is we'll bring forward, when we have, bids on this and our recommendation on it.
Okay.
And include anything in the stormwater master plan referencing it.
And I think, typically those would go on consent, but I think we would want this to be a general business item to discuss.
Okay.
And to be clear for people in the public, the bids that we're talking about are the bids to basically do a risk assessment, I guess, of the culvert and potentially including a
Ideas.
cost estimate for repairing the various portions of it.
Just, yeah, options for, yeah, it may not be a repair, maybe.
The bids we're talking about are not for the actual repairs. They're basically structural and study to see what needs to be done.
Okay. And next up is the wastewater treatment plant improvement options. So staff was going to get some cost savings data. And, UAB is gonna meet on this, and so I would suggest that our direction might be to, bring us that data, and then the UEB, or maybe, the liaison or staff can report out on what the UEB decides on this when they meet on Wednesday, what their discussion is like.
Right, I don't know that they'll have it done by Wednesday.
Okay, well,
Our meeting.
Whenever they're ready. Is everybody okay with that direction? Great, okay. Longmont Electric. So the question before us tonight, is how do we feel about signing the letter that was included in the packet?
To provide temporary power to the south side. Pembroke.
Temporary.
Yeah, it's your permanent power, yeah.
Not temporary, that's what I was saying, it's providing them power.
It's not a temporary line,
Whether the Lions does it or not.
yeah.
At the cost to the developer.
I think the cost estimate element of this is important. Figure out what that's gonna be. Like the electric community investment fee, and I looked at the section, it's 13-2-100. It basically says customers pay the cost of sending service to their buildings. And so, it'll be important not only for the particular service territory that we're talking about out on the generator lot, but for other potential territories in town to realize that any cost that quote unquote the town would pay for extending service territories are actually the ratepayers of the electric fund and of that electric service territory. So that we need to be very careful about obligating existing ratepayers to pay the costs of adding new territory to the town's electric service territory. We need to know what those costs are in advance and compare those to what revenues the electric utility might get in the long run from serving those territories. We don't have those cost figures yet, so I think that's important to understand before we agree to do that.
I agree with you, trustee Browning, and I think, I misspoke. So I'm talking about the invasion letter
Yeah.
only for
Yeah.
4652 Utica Highway.
And to be clear, you'd also be responsible for paying Longmont's cost to extend as well, that's universal. Everyone has an extension policy, so does the co-op, so does Excel, so on and so forth.
Oh, we pay.
Yeah,
Longmont.
if a new customer, if they, for example, on that property, they request a service from Longmont would charge them.
Correct, yeah, and it's gonna be more in this case if the Longmont can guarantee it. I guess my question is, it sounds like there's a time
For
sensitivity for this.
for that one property.
For that one property, so for this one property, if Think Generator says we want Lions power, can we sign this? If it's unacceptable to do it now?
And I think we should. I think if they want Lions Power and they're ready to go, let's do it. I don't see any downside to that.
Agreed.
agreement.
Yeah.
Trustee Browning?
I just had a question of staff. If we sign this letter, is Lions obligated to, what cost is this going to entail for the ratepayers and Lions Electric ratepayers? What costs, out of pocket costs for town ratepayers will this cost?
I don't think there should be any. This is slightly different. There's not a development agreement set up. So I was already we're working on a right of way. So tracking my time on it, right, with them normally on the development, all staff time is tracked for it. Otherwise, there should be none just from the utility itself. They have to pay for the labor and materials. Even if we use the transformer that we have, which is what we did with Summit, they bought new transformers. We put our transformer there and got a new transformer put back in our supply. So I don't see anything like straightforward cost. I'm trying to think of other costs that are out. I mean, we've looked at the capacity of the substation. Is I've been told it's not a problem from our contractor. I want an actual electrical engineer. I don't see anything that there's any cost to the actual maintenance time. If something goes down after it's done, we now have to be taking care of that area also. So there is the additional area of maintenance. That's about it.
I guess theoretically, if Lymont charges to take over this property, but my conversation with them, I would say under the law is that we would not be required to pay for anything for this particular property because it's not being served and there's no infrastructure there for us to take over.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you. Our final discussion direction item is landscaping modifications at Lions Valley Townhomes.
So we had, our proposal submitted by Lions Valley Townhomes, to make modifications to the landscaping. Parts of that in particular, really only the multifamily unit, just so we're in understanding, had to submit a development plan. The single family homes were not officially included in any development plan and are not officially restricted to any considerations that I'm aware of from that. They could do whatever they want to as far as I believe.
As long as they apply to the code, yeah.
But they have wrapped up in the multifamilies their landscaping that includes the single family. So I've been working to get them to move forward and to try to keep doing all of their landscaping for single family, multifamily, public improvements, the whole property. I just want people to be aware if there's pushback against it, that I don't know what we can do to force anyone to do something on the single family home. So that was first. The second part of it was that modifications to a development agreement come to staff. Staff can then look at them. I don't see any specific level, any way to determine what is considered minor or what is considered major, but I put in there the code that says if it's a minor modification to a development plan, staff can approve that. So previously, Summit came and said, can they hydro seed where they were going to previously put lawn? And staff approved that as a minor amendment. Now they're coming back that rather than hydro seed, I believe after the one board meeting here, it was discussed to do xeriscaping. So they have proposed doing xeriscaping. So I included the plan that they sent me. It's pretty rugged and just not a whole lot to it, but that's what they proposed wanting to do. So I was trying to decide if this is considered a minor development that staff can review, or is there a feeling that this should be considered a major development or a major modification to the development? And a major modification to a development requires a whole new submission of a development review process. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna read for the board's edification what a minor amendment reading entails. So minor variations in the location of structures improvements, or open space areas caused by engineering or other unforeseen difficulties may be reviewed and approved by the town staff. All plans so modified shall be revised to show the authorized changes and shall become part of the permanent records of the town. So at least according to this, it's the location of structures, improvements, or open space areas. So I guess you could arguably say it's improvements.
Or open space, yeah.
Yeah, open space, yeah, I guess. It's not open
Because it was always
space.
gonna be natural.
Yeah.
So I was trying, staff was looking to have confirmation if this is a minor modification to the development, and we should move forward with reviewing it. We can take input on that. I would think, I guess, I don't know officially by the code, but I would, if there is some input on what staff should be looking at for a review of that. Or should we do it major and have them go through the process?
Public hearings.
So what's your opinion, Aaron?
Excuse me,
Can
no,
I- No, I thought we were having a general discussion, so.
we're still in a formal meeting. Are there questions for Aaron? Trustee Dottie?
I have a question around, input from residents. So if this were a minor variation and staff were to review or approve, I mean, are the tenants and, you know, is their input taken into consideration at all? Or is
No,
this sort of
for
like a property
anything,
management company making that decision?
I would say no, I don't think we're going out asking neighbors how they might want other property to look in any, they're there, but they're just one tenant. I don't see how you're gonna ask different people how they want the different areas to look. I mean, if I suppose you could go to an HOA, but even then, I don't see going out to the public and asking them for input on.
Could we at least request, or could you, if this were to be up to staff, could we at least request that they inform residents ahead of time so that they're not surprised by people showing up in their backyards and laying stone and that kind of thing? I just feel like there's a
Sure.
big,
We can require.
there should be an effort around communicating.
I think that's easy, I can tell them just that
Mhm.
the direction of staff, to please make sure they notify the tenants for various steps of this process.
That should be the developer's obligation or not the town's.
Developer's obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just tell.
I would just like remind the developer of his obligation.
Trustee Lowe?
Is this, plan that we're looking at with the pink and the green, is that the extent of what you've seen, Aaron? Or do you have more detailed
No.
information?
That's the extent of what it was. They were trying to show the areas. I mean, we have, again, the previous development plan focused on the multifamily because that was really what was up for review for the development. I have some of the landscaping plans included in the single family home plan that were just there. Those were not part of the specific development agreement to approve or disapprove. But they have now then taken and tried to show us over numerous walks over the years now. But here's where we're gonna hydro seed with one type of seed, which was gonna be this boulder seed to replace sod. And so anywhere that is, which is the green in the fronts, they are saying now to really use cobble. The pink area was gonna be hydro seeded with our mix that matches the open space areas, especially behind it to the hill. So those areas are still to be hydro seeded. They did want to mention and make a note, there are certain areas that are straight rock wall that won't be seeded at all. But otherwise they would be hydro seeding with our mix, which is what was planned anyway. They were just trying to give a visual in the pink area. So it's really that the green would change from this hydro seed of a more lawn type mix to a xeriscape cobble.
There's a difference between xeriscape meaning plants or just cobble.
Right. They have.
I think the little dots indicate maybe one plant. Dot in the green.
Well, it says with ornamental grasses.
Yeah, it's like sawgrass probably.
Other questions? Opinions on whether this should be a staff decision or board decision?
I agree with staff that this should be their responsibility.
A minor versus major.
A minor.
Minor versus
Mhm.
major. Other opinions, trustee Hamrick?
Yeah, this meets the definition of minor in my opinion.
Trustee Law?
Yeah, you can make the call on it. So,
Member Ten?
I agree that it's minor. I mean, if it's just purely cobble and nothing else, I would hope you would indicate that you're not all that happy about that, in terms of, proving that that's not xeriscaping, that's.
I know
Building
it's zero,
right.
so it's zero.
Zero, excuse me.
Yeah, that's xeriscaping is what that is. Yeah, all right, yeah.
Which is what they said.
Yes.
I know.
exactly. Trustee Browning?
I agree, this is a minor, it isn't, it's not a major development, we have to go through the whole process. I'm comfortable that staff is, on top of it.
Trustee Dillon?
Minor.
And I agree, it's minor, however, I'm extremely displeased with what they're suggesting here. So in talking to a landscape architect, who works a lot in Boulder County, she was telling me that in Boulder County, you're not allowed to have more than 50% of a property hardscaped for environmental concerns.
I don't know if that's considered hardscape.
I think the red cobble is considered hardscape. And I'm not sure what the percentage is, but in any event, I'd like to request a couple of things. I'd like to request that the Ecology Advisory Board review this and provide their opinion. I'd also like to request that staff talk to Mr. Capps about having a watering plan, because whether they rip all the trees out and replace the trees with shrubs or, low water requirements, true xeriscape, they're gonna have to have a watering plan or else everything is gonna die again. And, I understand not wanting to lay grass. I understand the expense and the ongoing maintenance and all of that stuff, so definitely willing to consider other options, but, this honestly just, it doesn't feel great to me to just say, no, well, we couldn't make this go, so we're just gonna throw a bunch of cobble in everybody's backyard.
the one thing I will say to this credit, this is one heck of a defensible area with all this law. The other question is, do we still owe them $50,000?
Yes.
Yes, we've never accepted their public improvements yet.
Does
Which is the last-
Does any of this factor into that?
No, it's, as Aaron said, the single family doesn't even have regulations from us. Single family lots can design their yards as they like, so that's something to consider as we move forward. Anybody can. It's only the multifamily lot that was included in the development plan.
No, I was really waiting on the public improvements for 3 items that I had told them
There's 3 items
6
left.
months ago, 9 months ago. One was adjusting one of the junction boxes that was sloped 45 degrees, which they did. The other was cleaning up and finishing in the detention pond area because it's been left to grow over and the wattles are going in, so get that all taken care of. And then the strip of land that goes from multifamily D, which is the highest one on the top, around to Meccano. They have to do something along the sidewalk to prevent the rock edge and the dangerous area there, because that's then onto our right of way with the sidewalk there. So they are to level the rocks, weed that out and level the rocks so that as some of the scree comes down, it's gonna butt up against more of the flagstone. But those were the 3 areas I had that were public improvement. And then we would give them their last 50,000.
Right, so I think do you have clear enough direction?
I think so.
Okay.
Proceed for items first.
Well,
Minor.
not really, I mean, it's just rational basis.
One of the ones you were doing for the city.
I would, so just so that we're, clear, that staff would consider ecology board input into the plan.
Are you meeting in,
No, not this month, it'll be in January, so if you want to get for an agenda item for that.
Thank you, everybody. All right, let's move on to trustee reports. Trustee Delman, you still with us?
I'm still here. Not always, but I am right now. Parks and Rec did not meet this month. They didn't get in January.
All right, thank you. Trustee Browning?
Yes, let's see, the last UAD meeting, most of the things that they discussed, we've already covered tonight. The kind of ongoing issues with them. One thing I did want to mention, I think was part of, Director Kaplan's report is that I believe, the Rainy Corporation was going to be doing a grease trap inspection. Pretty much comprehensively of restaurants. And we're going to remind everybody, although we've been focusing on in our workshop today on specific particular items that may need to be added or replaced at the wastewater treatment plant, that there is still an ongoing efforts being made to deal with the high strength waste, both the grease trap variety and the potential industrial users. And so that it's not just particularly the equipment, we're also looking at actually addressing the high strength waste, and that's an ongoing effort. We'll hear more about it in the future as well.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Wednesday night, so I will be in the HPC.
Great. Trustee Roll?
No, nothing.
Trustee Dati?
I have a few things. The Housing and Human Services Commission met December 9th. There was a presentation by UEB Chair Jim Kerr on the time of use, electric rates. There was a discussion around an emergency preparedness fair that would take place in the spring, maybe April is what we were thinking. And I wasn't able to attend the Connect for Health Colorado fair on December 11th, but I'd like to think that it went well. Does anybody
Yeah,
know
it
who's been
did.
there?
It went, I wasn't out there, but we did get a report that it went well
and
and
signups, I think,
Oh, great.
Yeah.
For either Medicare or Medicaid?
or just connect.
Or
yeah,
just-
just health insurance.
Great.
Through the marketplace, yeah.
And it's my understanding that our local provider, Megan Foreman, who's a nurse practitioner here in town, she was also able to be
Yep.
there to inform
Okay.
residents that she, provides medical services, which is needed in our community. The Arts and Humanities Commission met on the next day on December 10th. So let's see, we had some public participation around the Beyond Word, which will take place the first weekend in May. If you have any ideas or projects you would like to do that go past technology, but actually connecting humans like face to face, they would be well accepted. There were several discussions around murals. One of the murals is a mural that was awarded, a mural on Broadway, a building that sticks out on Broadway there, kind of behind the visibility or it used to be visibility. I don't know what it is today. I guess it's uniquely Lions now. On the back of that building, there's a mural that's in the works, and a grant of $2,000 was awarded by Boulder County Arts Alliance for that mural. There's also funding that has been approved for a mural on the St. Vrain Valley Extension Trail, like on that back half of the municipal building. I'm not sure how much that funding it is. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I was told there was funding approved for that. Maybe that's from the budget, maybe. They were questioning whether they would be able to walk the trail, the St. Vrain Extension Trail, to discuss murals or statues towards the cul-de-sac. Is there a cul-de-sac at the end of the trail?
There's a roundabout.
There's a roundabout.
Yeah,
So-
like that dead end.
yeah, so I think they'd really like to visit that when possible to see if there's room there for a statue or a mural or some kind of art piece. Because I think that, based on the conference they went to this year, I think it was the Colorado Creative Conference, was that in Pueblo, I think? There was a lot of talk around having discussions around public art before while the project is happening or before the project happens, so that they're not coming in after the fact. So I think that they want to be a part of that process.
They should connect with, Tracy Sanders or Justin Doles, probably Justin Doles, to talk about that and.
When it's safe.
When it would be a good time, yeah.
And when there's not
That's fine.
action going.
Right.
Action might be better now than later,
Oh,
once
yeah.
they get the
Yeah.
trees cleared.
Okay,
Yeah, so.
okay.
connect-
So
they can
follow up
connect
with
that
Justin Doles, because I think there's actually enough funding in place to have 8 new sculptures. Sorry, I said statues, I meant to say sculptures. And finally, I know Android Jones presented a design for the north side of Town Hall here. And that will come in front of the Board of Trustees, I think in January or February. So there was a lot of talk around murals. And then where sculptures are concerned, the Hearts of Lions program, it looks like there will be funding for 8 new sculptures this coming year or 2025. And the call to artists has happened. There's a deadline of January 16th. If any local artists are interested in submitting something, there will be a selection in February. They're pretty excited about getting started on the municipal flag design and contest, but that will happen in 2025. And then finally, I have a request, and this was Trustee Delman who brought this to the Arts and Humanities Commission a couple of meetings ago, actually, around signage. You had talked about the community orchard, but actually that brought me to a bigger question around that entire parcel of land. And the discussion was, what kind of sign, what is that sign directing people towards or introducing people to? Is it to the orchard only, or is it to the entire park? And we have yet to name that park. And so I would love to ask the Parks and Rec Commission, I don't know if I'm able to request that, and have them look at, if we were to adopt that as a new park into the town of Lyons, what could we call that park? And what would be the procedure to create a park there before the Arts and Humanities Commission gets started on this signage? Right? So let's talk about the bigger picture. Are we
And I
interested
think
in naming this park?
Well, and I think that might be a question for staff too. You know, is this gonna become an official park? If so,
Right,
then Parks and Rec can start thinking about names.
right,
Yeah, I think that needs to come as a directive from the board.
sure.
Mhm.
So I guess
Which
I'm asking the
commissions
board
they
then.
want, yeah.
So I guess I'm asking the board if there's any interest in looking at that entire parcel, which includes the sculpture by John King and the community orchard and the confluence circle. There are a few elements now to that space.
You can look away.
Hickenlooper Way,
Yeah.
and formerly known as the Stacy parcel, correct?
Yeah.
So we don't really have a name for this area of land. I don't know that, is it zoned parks and open space?
It's, no, it retained its original zoning. It's,
So
I'm
maybe,
trying to think, did we rezone it? No, I don't think we did.
so
rezone.
maybe the request is to have an agenda item for discussion direction on whether the board wants to consider creating
A rezoning.
yeah, an
renaming.
official
Yeah,
park. So we can have
exactly.
we can have some
It's telling.
information from
It's a bio.
Director Cosgrove on what that means, what it would take, what it would cost, all
Exactly.
those things.
Just before we jump ahead and
So
start creating a
let's start,
sign, yeah,
let's start there.
I would love
I
that.
know with that, I was the liaison for LAAC, I know sometimes it's hard to, once they get going on an idea, I think it's such a great idea.
Well, and it was a valid question about directing people towards the orchard, but the bigger question was, well, does it make sense to have a sign just directing people to the orchard, or do we want a sign directing people, like welcoming people to that?
So
space?
that'll be a future agenda.
Great,
item.
I would love to request.
What
that
else
as a
you
future
got?
agenda. Oh, lastly, I wasn't able to attend the, what was it, the fair, the Connect for Health Colorado Fair, because I was attending the Boulder County Homelessness Working Group. So basically, we had a presentation by 2 representatives of the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness that collaborates with 19 federal agencies to prevent homelessness within the United States. So this is a national organization, a state agency. So this was really interesting. They mentioned the strong partnerships that are already, here in Boulder County. They talked about how prevention is key. So providing housing, keeping people in their affordable housing so they don't end up on the streets, how important leadership is, and how important it is for the federal government to collaborate with regional entities. They talked about the strategic plan called All In, which offers solutions for housing and supports, crisis response, and prevention. Of course, they cannot anticipate what the next administration will decide to do with this Interagency Council on Homelessness. However, the current administration has been very determined to break down very determined to prevent homelessness going forward. So what, as a working group, we've met a few times this year. There were a couple of questions here. One of them was, do we want to continue this discussion in 2025? And because there was a poll around best steps of action, County Commissioner Lochimin actually recommended we choose one of these actions to focus on in 2025. And so the question was, well, I guess I should tell you what was the action that was decided. It was to eliminate barriers of access to accessory dwelling unit or backyard cottages, so ADUs, to ensure sustainable homeownership through a countywide set of prototypes or templates that all jurisdictions could support for expedited building permit approval, identifying a financial partner, including special assessment option and local government, education outreach program on how incremental development can keep neighborhoods intact, supporting use of small minority or women-owned businesses as contractors for this work, capturing baseline ADU data and monitoring reporting over time to show growth of different types of units detached and attached. So it sounds like something that, you know, we as the town of Lyons have already been working on for a number of years, and this is something that the Boulder County would like to focus on in 2025. We're going to focus on one thing as a regional
You can
approach.
lead the master class.
I will, well, they actually asked us if we could share our ADU ordinance. If we have an ADU ordinance, they would like to see it.
Yeah.
They would like to see it.
But it's
It's
about to
online.
be changed thanks to the state.
Well, and that's something that I wanted to bring up actually, but I was attending virtually. But it's not as easy
Yeah,
to
we can talk
participate.
about that.
So,
Okay, can we bring it in for a landing?
yes, so I just want to end with the fact that this group has decided to keep the momentum going. So we will continue to meet quarterly, with the next meeting taking place on March 12th, and I'm happy to attend these meetings.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Much.
And I'll keep you updated as to where we are with the ADU at the Boulder County level.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
For doing it. Trustee Hammer?
I'm supposed to follow that?
Yes, you are.
The Sustainable Futures Commission did not meet for December. However, they hosted a movie night at the library on, what was it, plastics? I think Trustee
Yeah.
Wall was there.
Plastic one.
It was pretty eye-opening, somewhat depressing, but maybe a little optimistic, but, and it was well attended. I think there was 35 people there, so.
Okay.
And then, as a potential future agenda item, some of y'all were on an email this week from the executive director from LEAF, requesting, help from trying to get additional funding from Boulder County. It seemed to me when I saw that email that maybe if this board would issue a resolution similar to what we did like with 224 Seward, to the commissioners, the county commissioners, to say we're in support of this. So I know all the nonprofits in Boulder County are struggling because all the cutbacks, and so this affects services here in town, people we know. So I think it would behoove us to look at a resolution to the commissioners.
So let's put that on as maybe a discussion direction item, and then we can talk about whether it makes more sense to do a resolution or
Or-
a letter
yeah,
or
Whatever the right vehicle
Yeah.
is.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. I know, Executive Director Barton got a master class in what, open meetings laws. Via email by emailing all of us. Thanks for that.
Okay, so a question, trustee Delman, the Student Advisory Commission. What's happening?
I don't know, I reached out and haven't really been hearing anything, and I know they had, it was 2 students. And then they said that there were a couple more talked about signing up. I don't know.
How many students do we have appointed at the moment?
I think 5 or 6.
So we should, if it's, so the Student Advisory Commission is really pretty vital. I mean, and so we need to get those meetings going, and, you know, if it doesn't work with your schedule or you need to change, let me know and we'll assign a new liaison, but I think it's really important to get that going. So maybe you can work with staff and let me know, but especially, you know, I know they're all going on break. So January would be a good time to actually have a meeting. Just a couple of other things, PCDC has not met and, I'm not sure when the next meeting's gonna be. We haven't had the agenda setting. I'm meeting with Chair Evers Wednesday morning to have a chat. I think everybody saw the news article about 224 Seward, about Boulder County buying 224 Seward. I sent a note of gratitude to the commissioners for their partnership in this and said that we look forward to doing the work ahead. And I've been stopped by a number of residents to say thank you. So that's great news. I drove Santa Claus in the parade and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Although his gesturing almost landed me a broken nose. But it was worth it. And then, last week I attended, I was part of the Colorado delegation to attend the Mayor's Summit on Anti-Semitism in California, which was, fully sponsored. And it was incredible. It was an incredible event. There were 200 mayors from North America, so the US and Canada. And we talked about strategies for addressing extremism and hate in all different kinds of communities and in all different kinds of situations. So, really honored to attend that. And that's all I have. We have a summary of action items, please.
Okay. So it'll start with the workshop. Number one, would like a follow-up from the UEB recommendations for the wastewater treatment facility improvement options. Item 2 was determine electric utility costs for Longmont versus Lyons for existing customers. What will the cost to town be? Bring back an updated letter, and it got approved in general business. Item 3 is have staff review access direction on access easement for Apple Valley water tank property should be for river access at high water mark only on south side to the property line, and bring that to the next meeting.
No, that was one trustee. We just need to review and see what it
See
said.
what it is, right, and bring that back to the next
He'll
meeting.
come back to that.
Yeah.
Requested to communicate more clearly and more often on change to how public can submit comments to clerk for meetings. Ordinances 1177 and 1178 passed on second reading. Ordinance 1179 passed to second reading. The updated fee schedule was passed. Discussion on flagstone culverts. After RFP comes back, they would like from the structural engineer bring back with numbers and recommendations and a resolution under general business to discuss. Wastewater treatment facility improvements, bring cost-saving data and UEB recommendations to a future meeting. The Longmont Electric territory item, direction is to sign the letter for the Tamarillo property only. Lyons Valley Townhomes, the board consensus is that this is a minor review. They would like to request that the EAB review this and give feedback. And staff is also talked with Mr. Capps on having a watering plan and bring that back to the board.
And communicating with residents.
Okay, yep. Next, have LAHC connect with Tracy and Justin on public art on the St. Crane Trail. Next, I have a future agenda item if the board has interest in looking at the Confluence Circle area community orchard becoming a formal park. Staff is to share the ADU ordinance with the county. And there's a potential future agenda item from Leaf requesting additional funding from BOCO. Would the board potentially issue a resolution or letter in support of? And next is work with staff to coordinate a meeting with the Student Advisory Commission in January after break. Victoria?
The only other item was trustee Browning just saying he'd like to review Windows and the IBC. So I don't know if we'll do that together, but it's on the radar. Yeah.
I didn't hear about the request for the park. Was that on there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's why I missed it.
Do we want to characterize the changes to the fee schedule?
We know what they are.
We know it. We have those.
Yeah.
Okay.
It passed. I mean, we have the,
Brandon?
I already sent the ordinances in that got changed, so we're good.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right.
That motion passes.
Really?
I know.
It'll be surprising if it's early.